by the door, two names on the paper, one run, one score. Flash the map, don't fumble, keep the nerves off the face. No jokes in the fire, no panic in the place. We going clean, we going lean. We don't let it split, we keep it a team. No loose ends, no wild noise. Hold the line, trust your voice. If the ground shakes, if the shadows grin, we stay locked in. We don't let it turn. Hooke and Leyoric, we don't fall apart. Hooke and Leyoric, we know who we are. Make it straight, make it tight, not a mess tonight. Hooke and Leyoric, we survive the night. This world got teeth, this world got rooms. Red on the walls and the crawl in the gloom. Every turn's a test, every step's a dare. But we read the signs, we don't split the pair. One pulls back, one pushes through. You watch my six, I watch for you. No extra chaos, no clown show plan. Not like Portal 2, we got a steady hand. No loose ends, no loud noise. Hold the line, trust your voice. If the ground shakes, if the shadows grin, we stay locked in. We don't let it turn. Hooke and Leyoric, we don't fall apart. Hooke and Leyoric, we know who we are. Make it straight, make it tight, not a mess tonight. Hooke and Leyoric, we survive the night. Low hum, cold breath, metal in the dark. Count to three, then we make our mark. If the door locks hard, if the fear gets loud, we stay side by side. We go back down. Say it again. We came to win. We came as strong. Hooke and Leyoric, we don't fall apart. Hooke and Leyoric, we know who we are. Make it straight, make it tight, not a mess tonight. Hooke and Leyoric, we survive the night. Leyoric, we don't back down, down. Hooke and Leyoric, we take it down, down. Make it straight, make it tight, not a mess tonight. Hooke and Leyoric, we
Oh, that kind of aims really well towards the end. I hadn't even noticed that. Steam Train, what's happening? Welcome on. Me and Hooke decided to try and do it beforehand where we had shared chat as soon as we started stream, but he's wanting to try it a bit different now where we kind of split the very start and then we just go in together as a team. But what is happening? Void, welcome on. Thank you very much for the check-in. McKens, thank you, buddy, for the check-in as well. Will the team be able to beat the dragon at the end of the stream? We'll only be able to find out if people check in. But what is the crack? What is the story?
Funny you should say that there, Andy. I remember getting blocked one time.
I don't know
going
which
in the
stream to
road by
watch.
an accident.
McKins, whatever one you want, you pick. Dealer's choice. But it's a shared chat anyway, so whatever you say in chat will come through the both anyway, so it's not a bother. No problemo. Now, the one thing is, we're not doing shared chat, so I said to Hooke, I was all going not be chatting for like 45 minutes because I don't chat that long. I struggle with it. I don't know what to do. And it's weird as well because I have to kind of watch for the icons as well to see which chat's mine and which chat's his, because there's no point in me responding to his chat because they can't hear me because he's being muted at the moment. Unless he doesn't. Maybe he's doing it just to fool me. I don't know. Hooke is talking shit about you. You better fucking not be. McKenzie, you stick up for me. You stick up for me. You say to him. You say none of this shenanigans. Good. Knew you'd be talking to Leyoric before stream. That man never stops talking. Never fucking stops. Everybody's checking Hooke. He has me in grey. The fuck? Good yet?
Do it, lady.
Look at him. No, I can see myself now, not in grey. He can fucking hear me now, the bastard. What are you doing? What are you doing? I can see you. I can see you.
I can see you.
I can see you.
I
can hear you as well. What is the crack? Thank you for signing on. Tomahawk, what is the story? Sierra, what is happening?
Everybody's here. These are all really good.
We have a level 20
7
party.
minutes. 7 minutes is all I can spare to play with you.
Folks, let me know tonight if Leyoric is louder, by the way, because he fixed his audio. Compared to last week where he was like whispering. It was like ASMR.
Actually,
so let me know.
It wasn't even an audio issue. I was just being very soft the entire time.
You probably were. That's
what's
you know what you can do now, right? You can watch me squat, both on shared thing and on stream, right?
It's going to be fun. I'm actually looking forward to it. I really enjoyed Resident Evil 5 there last week. And then Hooke cancelled on Sunday because he is a girl. But Phantom, welcome and thank you for signing in the ledger. Level 5 now, Rogue. I've kind of changed about the classes as well. So there's a different class for every level. Because before it was just like Goblin, Healer and stuff for a long time. But what is the crack? I fucking did that. Go on, you fuck off and squat again. Go on, you go and squat again. Go. You haven't done enough. It's like pumping up a tire. You need to squat more to get taller. Where you go? We beat the boss last time. Did not beat the boss last time. No, but you're level 20 already, so you're fucking flying it out.
The boss hasn't been beat, has it?
Not yet, no. And
It's fixed. Down, it's fixed.
Its health is so hidden. I've forgotten what it said it is.
Of course
Can you remove the chat from the screen? It's covering Hooke. How
fucking dare you?
Sorry,
dare you? Right there, right there.
Through the quad
Thank
and
you,
into the
Vince.
gymnasium. Come
Thank
on,
you, Vince.
everybody!
You know, I could actually stick
Over
the
me.
chat behind him. I prefer the words to his face, so I don't know. Like, Tomahawk, thank you very much
Or
for
you
the
could give
streak.
me, like, bottom
I
left.
just realized I probably missed a lot of my streaks as well because of this.
Why?
Because I'm not moderating your chat now because I'm streaming with you.
Oh, aye. Your streak might be dead.
Could be. Hold on, I'll go check.
There's your latest excuse.
I'm lurking. Oh no! Hold on! A fucking minute. Hold on. Look at
See,
that.
I'm lurking.
Look at that.
Look, you're covering my streak now. Fuck's
Look
sake.
at that. 45. Look at that.
I need to be my streak on this scene. Where is it?
Still annoyed. I lost my previous streak, Tomahawk. It's all Hooke's fault. It's all Hooke's fault. I blame him.
Nope. It's never my fault.
Don't worry about
Never my fault.
I'm locked, mate. I seen that, Tomahawk. That was fucking funny. That was good.
I've
Hooke has reached maximum. He may burst if he gets any taller. Roger, I heard the heroes of Hooke and the legend of the Ark, two bright shining souls that made so many people's days brighter by being their amazing souls. I thank you, Roger. I thank you for coming on and
Yes.
for telling them lies. I paid you to tell because we're really horrible people, but we pay you to say nice things. You can shove your streaks up your arses.
Stream streak.
Hey, hold on, McKenzie. We're not the ones that decided to swan off to Australia. You know.
Exactly. That's not our fault.
No.
You were
Jesus.
selfish not to leave me for 3 weeks, McKenzie.
I know.
That's
Hooke didn't know what to do. He
I was
just
lost. Couldn't sleep.
he sat there one day with a turnover going, how do I eat this anymore? I forget. I don't know what to do.
I
Hooke
didn't even cut it in half and butter it.
Your hook cam needs to be just Hook's 5 head. How do you know it isn't? How do you know I haven't put a filter on to reduce it?
Just
I gotta have Leyoric back in chat.
I'll hype you up.
Tomahawk, thank you. We all know, you know which side your bread's buttered. I gotta hype you all up. Roger,
Right.
you absolute legend.
Tomahawk.
Thank you.
I'll remember that. I'll remember that.
We
Actually,
should have
that's a
for
good
Roger as
question.
well. Phenomenal streamer. Give him a wee follow if you're not already.
Definitely.
Ignitus, what's happening?
Question for you,
What's the story?
Leyoric?
Yes. The answer's 14.
It always is. No, it's 42. If, say, Tomahawk, for example, was watching
Yep.
your stream and mine, I wonder if it counts for both.
If he's watching both of ours or just one of them?
No, both. Like, I wonder if it counts for both people if he's watching both. Like, it
If he
should
had
in my
if he
head,
had,
but I'm like,
if he had the two tabs open, yeah. Would do, yeah.
yeah. Like, I'm just saying Tomahawk as an example. I'm not calling you a Tomahawk, even though, no.
Tomahawk, I
am.
defended you. He was slagging you off. He was giving you grief, and I was like, you leave Tomahawk alone.
Ignited spots correct. Good to see it.
But yeah,
Well done.
there's two tabs open. It should count the two of them. As long as it's like you don't have like loads of tabs, and then it's like, oh, we're just not going to count any of them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Tomahawk,
Folks, let me
tell.
know.
Do you remember time?
Well-
Do you remember time Hook went on Tomahawk's podcast and started
Tell me
mouthing
what
off?
to do.
Tomahawk wanted
He
to finish
switched
up.
chats. Look, he's in my chat now. Crafty shit.
Tomahawk wanted to finish up early, and Hook just kept chatting for like 9 hours.
I did.
Have two
Tomahawk was like,
screens.
listen, this is going to take an hour. It took an hour and 45 minutes. I need to move my redeems now because you're in the way. Your
Hey, man.
head's in the way.
Came in and chatted shit about Xbox. I
There we go.
fucking dare you.
Did.
Walking on the
PlayStation.
PlayStation's most competitive
Thank you for checking.
podcast. And you went
Yes.
on talking about Xbox.
And I elevated it. I was like, I talked about Master Chief, and he's ours.
Hey, tell you what. Did you see the rumors about Game Pass? I was chatting
were
to Hooke
telling
and
me.
Reddit about it earlier. That potentially the rumors are that Game Pass could include your World of Warcraft, Minecraft Realms, or Fallout First subscriptions. You get to pick one of them. But bear in mind, pinch of salt, it's only rumors at the moment. But that'll be amazing.
Fallout or World of Warcraft?
Leyoric, can I borrow your beard, please? Yes. I have one here right in the bag, ready to send out to you. No bother.
Heck?
Not a problem.
Wait, is that your wig?
That's my wig. Yeah. Have you played the new James
There we
Bond
go, You
game?
can see the streak now.
I'm excited to see it. I'm
Is it out?
excited to play it. I've seen the reviews. It's out today. If you pre-order, it's out today. It's out tomorrow for everyone else.
Early
It
access
probably
today.
won't, it won't be till the weekend I get to play it though.
You and I want to play. Ruthie,
Halo.
welcome on. I want to play the new Batman. Lego Batman.
Oh, apparently it's brilliant. Is that the new CRT in the background there? It is. It is.
It is.
It's act.
If I can get my head out of the way. Does. That's great to see.
Game Pass
Game
should
Pass
give
should
up.
give up.
Aye, but all the Monster Hunter games are now free on Game Pass. They're not actually, but actually I think Stories 1 and 2 might be.
You bought a Series X today. Nice, Ignite. Any
Nice one.
particular game you were buying it for? Out of curiosity. Honestly, I think over the next 12 months, Xbox is going to improve, which is good for competition. I hope they do.
It is. It is. It is. Every developer or every company doing well is good for the consumer because they have to do better than to compete.
Aye, 100%. I wonder if they're going to walk back the exclusivity. No, the way they were thinking of, we're on every platform, like a Sega. Like, I wonder if they're going to walk that back a bit.
They might walk it back on certain games, but Call of Duty and stuff, I think, is going to be everywhere. Minecraft, because they're making too much money off it. Yeah.
That'd be stupid. But I mean, like, they've committed to the Halo 1 remake. Maybe they'll commit to Halo 1, 2, and 3, because they are working on 2 and 3 right now as we speak.
Yeah.
So maybe after that, maybe Halo 7 is Xbox exclusive. Like, in my head, that really, really makes no sense. Like, if you've done one now, you need to do them all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
But
I
maybe
agree.
Gears won't be multi-platform, maybe, because they were planning on doing that, according to all the intents and purposes of the leaks. But maybe it won't be.
We saying Ignitus, Arkham Origins and Fable. Ah, very good. The new Fable looks good.
Oh, Arkham Origins.
Game Pass is a great selection, much better for the day ones. And yeah, but they're rolling back the day ones as well, because Call of Duty, you don't get that day one anymore now because I think it was costing too much.
Unless you have the premium, doesn't it? Like the typically
It might
top
be.
tier,
It might
I
be.
think.
It might be. I don't have that one. I just have the normal.
Which
Game
is
Pass.
kind of more like PlayStation Plus. Now, PlayStation Plus, to be fair, for the longest time, like apart from some of the free games you get are good, apart from that, it's quite shite and always has been. Like Game Pass was good as well until they hiked the price up, and then the amount of games that was coming out on it started to dwindle, and then it therefore became shit and quite boring. So
Thank you very much, Flamash, for coming on and signing the ledger. Did you see? You son of a bitch. You son of a bitch.
Oh, excuse me? No.
Did you see that
What do you say?
Epic Games?
No. I'm not gonna give you a treat if you call me that. What do you say?
106? What did you say?
Fuck, that's loud. Just all of everything was going off at the one time and I couldn't hear anything. Did you see on Epic Games the Tomb Raider remaster trilogy for free? For free!
Oh, I didn't see that actually. Kens, thanks for the sign on, dude. Get stuffed, Flemish. Good evening. Good evening.
He's a
Wish I could
nightmare.
play the lights and...
He's a nightmare, but go
Flemish
follow
is-
Flemish. He absolutely
he's lovely.
smashed a charity event there at the weekend. You are still covered in
Freaking
sand.
did. Nearly $1,000.
I know.
Which was amazing.
Fucking fair play to
Oh,
him.
well done,
He-
Flemish.
He,
Well
he
done.
never finished Resident Evil 9 though. He needs to do that before he goes back to Resident Evil 6, his favorite game.
Got you, Ruthie. I got you. Hello, by the way. You're welcome when Dot fired her on, and I didn't even say hello because Leyoric was chatting, so it's his fault. Right? He has a mug. Yes, Ruthie. He has a mug. You're right.
And dare you. Look, you are cheeky bastard.
Nah. Ignitus, you were saying you wanted to play Spyro on Xbox or PlayStation. You got a Series X. Look at him chatting in my chat.
Bears, what's happening? Bear check on here too. Post show. Actually worked out. Technically, it's 1K because the payout is from Twitch this month. Oh, very good. Nice one.
Nice, Flemish. Nice one, man. Nice.
My mug's nicer than Hooke's.
Yeah, well. Ignitus, if you look into, see on the Xbox side, I think it's like a $5. You can pay for the development like app or whatever it is. But see if you download that onto the Series X or S, you can very easily follow a YouTube video and install any emulator you want.
Someone some tech YouTube channel should do a video on it.
Well, you know, that's merging into gaming then, Nick. No. New video coming this week, by the way, folks. It'll be out on Thursday.
It's of Hooke's naked bum. Watch it.
It is. It is. Hooke Cheeks. That's what it's titled.
Cheeks. What do I miss? Hooke's cup has been admired 39 times. My God.
39 times. Ruthie, fantastic.
Play my walk-on, bitch. For McKen's.
McKen's loves it. Loves it. He did it there twice in a row. He loves it that much. He's missed it, you know. That's what it is.
That's what
he says at the wedding.
He has to make up for it.
Didn't even miss us. He just missed the streams. No, he was all, I don't give a shit about yous. He's all to me. It was mistakes.
Well, I've noticed.
I'm sorry.
He ignores me in real life.
I don't have this brain.
He's a cheeky fucker. Excuse me, French.
McKen's is AI. Ready? What's a story?
It's a
story. It didn't play, but
it didn't play, but it did, McKen's. You must have been on the Orcs tab or something because it played twice in my ears. Ready? What is happening, Mr. Handsome? I'm doing well, thanks. How is all the peoples? Very well.
Well, we're doing all right. It was a tough out of work the other day, but I was looking forward to this. I'm glad they murder some things. That sounded weird, but yes.
You did actually. Whereas I'm the opposite. I'm off now Wednesday, Thursday, Friday because it's me and Mrs. Hooke's wedding anniversary tomorrow.
She's stucky for that long.
Oh yes, 5 years. 5 years.
Fair play.
17 years together.
It's good to see she's doing her work for charity.
Hey, I know. You wouldn't believe it. Started for Make a Wish. Like McKen's, we met at McKen's house because McKen's is disabled. He contacted Make a Wish.
Jesus Christ! Fucking hell!
Like, listen, can you do this for me? And that's how we met. Amazing.
I was thinking about the other day when we were talking about the flood not being in Halo Reach. Right? Okay. All right, enough. It's the one.
Oh yeah.
It's the one game that really doesn't have it.
Well, like that's what I said to you, Ignitus. Like they could be, like technically they existed, but they weren't found until Halo 1, which was
like Quincy stole people's Bankai. Not the Irish apology. You're playing them at strengths. You're winning me over. You could just name a Monster Hunter game now, and I'll be all honest. I'll be up for it.
What? What do you mean?
There's layers of this, but there is.
Like,
that's why they call me Leyoric. Nobody calls me that. Actually, that was funny in Waffle's wedding when people kept calling me Leyoric.
Not even just Dean.
I was like, it's kind of odd to hear that in real life rather than just
even Mrs. Waffles. She was calling you Leyoric as well.
I know. I was like, that's not my name. My real name's Hooke.
I thought it was a bit rude when you were like, you addressed me by my proper title, you little bollocks. I thought that was a bit rude when you said it.
My full name is for fuck's sake.
Well. Don't abbreviate me.
It's the next year cash video, 14-hour long video, but Hooke's bum. Yes,
we're going
that's exactly
Thomas. Through the quad.
And the title of the squeaky bum thing.
Whoa, happy 60 stream streak. My God, thank you.
60, Jesus.
60. That's almost as old as me.
Kind of wish we could see redeems on either in this chat, you know.
Yeah.
I know it's activity feed technically, but it'd be pretty cool if it had like your name beside it, so I could see it as well.
Yeah.
But it probably would spam chat a bit, like.
It would. But it would make chat look really, really buzzy.
Well, that's true too.
I want to make an alcohol malt on a school night. Fair play to you. What are you making? There's a Bailey's on it. Bailey's will be good in a milkshake. See Bailey's and coffee. Right, it's tidy.
Bailey's in most things, to be fair. Beautiful.
Bailey's in its own, sweet. Bailey's and ice cream.
Chat will be busy anyway, because you guys are all right. Thanks, Reddy.
Oh, Reddy. Reddy said lovely things about us.
It's your turn to pay him this month, wasn't it?
Oh, fuck, I forgot. I'll get that sent over to you ready now.
Good man.
Forgot to pay my subscription.
Right, we get on the game.
I was about to say, we'll play the thing.
Aye, let's do it.
Sorry, we're going streaking through the quad and into the gymnasium. Come on, everybody!
What's the Elvish word for friend?
Go.
Melon.
Just catchphrase. Apologies, I'm neglecting Hooke's chat, like talking to divorced parents. It's a combined chat, you're grand. I'm glad you got my subtle reminder. Right, I had to invite you through Steam, didn't I? What do I remember? So I wonder, did I had play a game, load, and then invite you? Huh? On whose stream?
What about now? There we go. There we go. The orc's muted. I muted myself on my own stream. I don't know why.
Oh, dumbass. Right, okay. I was wondering.
I am. I am a bit of a dumbass. Thank you, Shane.
Right,
Thank you, Shane. I don't know why this screen I would have muted it. Then again, when I'm off stream, I do some crazy things. Like, ready, go and do me a favor. What's the temperature with you at the moment? Just tell me the temperature.
What is happening, by the way?
Just
morning.
How hot is it? How hot is it ready at the moment with you? How hot is it?
Can I invite you here, I wonder?
And I hope this works because I could only ever test it off stream as well, and if it doesn't, it's just going to fuck up the entire
I forgot
thing.
to add that in the chat, by the way.
We're all going to die. Reddy's not right back to me. Am I still muted? 17 degrees.
I you last week.
No, type 17C. Doing it like that. The one way it could go around breaking it. Fucking knows what I'm doing too. He knows what I'm doing.
Master tester, that's why.
He knew it. See, degrees, because that could be both Celsius and Fahrenheit. That would fuck it up. There's no way for it to know.
Shit. Right, I sent you an invite. Let me know if you get it there. I think that should drop you into the menu beside me. I think.
Hey, ready crash. It's 62.6 freedom units. There we go. So if it automatically set up, depending on if someone writes C after a number or F, it'll convert the temperature.
Nice. Tanko, appreciate that.
I thought so.
It's freedom units. Did you get that invite?
I did.
Why are you not showing up?
Because we've quite a few people from different countries and stuff, especially when we've American folks on, and there's always a bit of confusion. We're all like, oh, it's like 114 Fahrenheit, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. I have no idea.
Oh, sweet, you're there now. That it is. Right. What is that?
5 Celsius there. That's 41 freedom units. Do I have any money? I do have money. Oh, I don't want to buy a gun.
Rifle. This.
Upgrade my capacity.
It's
It's fucking cold. I think I broke it. Tomahawk. That would break it, yeah.
I don't think there's a temperature that high.
I think StreamerBot's just like, no, we're melting.
5C. Where you're in, I suppose it's your winter, isn't it? It is currently 23.2 where I am. Well, in this room. I think outside's like 16 or so now, but you can see it here. This does convert to freedom units as well if I wanted to, but I just don't. Because why would you? It don't make sense.
It does for your American viewers. Why are you so not accommodating? Worst host ever.
I know, but Richards keeps jump scaring me on OBS, so like
100% hoodie weather. I love hoodie weather. See when I can just throw on. I have a big sort of bloof, I call, and I put that on. It's a big blue one.
There was
How does I know there's number? It sounds like Leyoric streamish. What? Does anyone know what the temperature of the sun is? And Tomahawk types it on. We're like, but we don't have it in Fahrenheit. We don't have it in Celsius. For fuck's sake. It's all broke.
Do you mind though when we did the DD campaign?
Yeah.
That winter was freezing, like even by our standards, and I literally wore an hoodie on every stream as well, and it was great. I couldn't do that now. I'd be sweating.
Where it's as warm as fuck now.
Aye.
I keep jump scaring you because I can't even hear the jump scare, but I'm loving the fact that it's happening. Snorlax,
Yep,
Udi.
keep jump scaring
Very
you because
nice.
it continues to be funny. Bunch of fives. Right, let's see. I should have bought ammo.
You know what? You know what? You know what? Minecraft, that is so rude. It's inappropriate. You shouldn't be doing that to him. You shouldn't be giving him a wee scare. That's horrible. Stop it. Stop it now.
Heck. Leyoric, I will ban your ass.
I am streaming with you. It
I
can't
can
be me.
Timothy
It
feet.
can't be me.
You
It
little
can't.
shit.
It legally can't be me.
Of course it can.
From a legal
You're
point
far
of
enough
view,
away.
I am evidence to be here streaming with you, so it can't be me.
Why does it say Leyoric redeemed jump scare for
I put-
200 hit points?
That's Leyoric. That's a different guy. I
Is
played
that
the
the funny
fifth.
one? Adam, would you ready up? Stop chin wagging. Who are you, Hook?
Hang about you too much. That's a problem.
I heard about Irving. Tough
Right, folks,
break.
let me know what
Yes,
Leyoric
but there
is like
will
versus the
be
game
other
this week, please.
opportunities. Sheva to headquarters.
This is headquarters.
Sheva.
What's your situation?
Oil field in the marshlands. We're rejoining Delta Team and heading there now.
Understood.
Ooh, subs caramel ice cream.
They don't let up, do they?
Right, what is this affecting? Zombie
Do what you
people?
gotta do to stop him. But don't get too trigger happy or the guns will overheat. If that happens, we'll be an easy target till they cool down.
Okay, this is pretty good.
Got some sharp curves up ahead. Hold on tight.
Not bad. Tokyo Drift.
I've just turned down the volume on mine because it's way loud.
This is Captain Stone, Delta Team.
Are the gamers?
I just received word from HQ. Based on the data you uploaded from that hard drive, most of the townspeople have been infected by parasites known as Las Plagas. The data refers to the infected as Magini.
What does all this have to do with Ouroboros?
Perfect name there, lads. I know. Thank you, Unitas.
Looks like the only way we're getting answers is from Irving.
Correct my train as you know.
That won't even scratch
Whoa.
the paint.
Oh, haven't seen us.
Damn. I had a big truck.
It's gonna get bumpy. Hang on.
This is better than playing the game. Mackenzie missed the first week. We started off so jank, but by the end we took down like a boss, wasn't it?
It was I.
It was a boss. First try through. Come on, truck, speed up. Can't shoot the guns, huh?
That's gonna affect the resale value.
Oh,
So you got now, get the shot on. There we go. Right, there's a truck to me now, but I can't shoot them.
you're on my Hitman iron list.
Think we got them. There we go. Nice.
That you're both clean shaven with ginger hair.
Hold on tight.
Something upside
not ginger.
your heads. We're upside down.
Not ginger.
It's just the one person. Just rotate the camera.
Reinforcements are
I have a red light behind my leg.
until they arrive. Repeat, hold your position.
Let's pick up the pace.
Oh, I am really struggling to hear you, Hook.
Are you?
It's just the game audio is really fucking loud, and it was like this last time as well, where the cutscenes and stuff were just really over the top loud.
They are, to be fair. I had my game at like 15 volume. I'm not even joking. For that
I've
reason.
had to just bump it down there now. Double trouble tonight. Funny you say that.
I need him.
My mate's brother was on X Factor on as a group of how many mates singing the Proclaimers. They call themselves Double Trouble.
There's no getting past that truck unless you two.
Your mates, brother?
Yep.
Seriously? Not
Yeah.
taking the
Oh,
piss?
100% though.
Oh, right, okay. Fair enough, so. I'm nearly dead, by the way.
So am I. It has not gone well.
I don't know.
I think it's because I keep pausing. They turn my volume down. That's what the matters.
Well, that would do it, Was that us that died or them? Ah, for
How's weather,
fuck's
baby?
sake.
It's been fucking roasting. Although today's have been a bit more manageable. It's not as bad today.
Dean, what's happening?
Dean, what's happening?
He's trying to ram us into the river. Do something.
Do something.
Oh shit!
You are
We
dead.
did.
I'm playing First Light. Oh, very nice weekends. No spoilers. No spoilers.
Oh, very nice.
I'm going to be playing that this weekend.
I'm
Absolutely
torn
roasting.
between picking up that or Batman. I can't decide.
It's whether you get the time to play it, because First Light's apparently about 14 to 20 hours.
Did you see the reviews?
I look reviewing well.
Oh, unbelievable!
He's trying to ram us into the river. Do something.
Do something. How do I do something? I'm just shooting it.
I know.
Oh, it's dead.
You're at the back.
You're Maz at the back.
Right. How? Like, I'm sorry, but how can they afford all these motorbikes? What's the story of it?
Also, if there's guys in a Jeep by Gatlin going, why would you chase it on a motorbike with an axe? You know, I'll get him with my axe. This is sorting. Hit 8 Metacritic. So hyper. So am I. God, I wish I had money. I need both Lego Batman and First Light. Feed picks. Sell feed picks. James Bond's in the game. McKenn's fucking wrecked. You spoiled it for me now. No point in getting them now. Reviews make it look like a Game of the Year contender.
It could be. Legolas. What is the crack? Welcome in.
Well, hello. The best and second best streamers. I don't even know which orders I've done.
We all know. That's okay. The Orcs first.
Yeah, we know. We know. Hooks first.
We know.
You're her brother. Of course you're first.
I know. She likes you more. Don't be silly. Right, so volume is good then, folks, because nobody actually answered me. So I'm assuming yes.
See, mine's just too loud. I couldn't hear anything previously.
Right, okay. He's gonna let me know. Anyone that's watching on my side, if it's good. The
Orcs first.
See?
Yes.
Easy.
Yes.
Hit this house.
Getting Daz a tattoo. Hook's sister likes me more than him.
Volume in general, Legolas, like Leyoric versus the game, etc. Now the cutscenes of the game are ridiculously loud versus the rest of the game. We've discovered.
I can hear you both, so
it
it's
just
good for
gets
me.
suddenly really loud.
That is weird. Like, gameplay is normally quite quiet, and then it just gets really stupid. Then I'm playing it myself. It's great. Feels like a proper Bond experience rather than Hitman. Nice one. What the fuck?
What the fuck is this?
Hook Black Belt test has been pushed back to July.
Has it? How so? Ignitus?
Oh, game okay, and you both. Thank you very much. Legolas, you legend. Out of all Hook's sisters, you're my favorite.
I say to Teddy all the time, isn't she your favorite aunt? Soon else. I don't fancy fighting that thing with the orcs in.
He's a bit of a troll.
Say, took you long enough.
Hey, you just lie down. Oh, I'll do it. I'm everybody's favorite.
Our language is terrible.
Shoot him in the dick.
Yep.
That's exactly. He's a person on his winky. He's a wee man hanging from him. He's a wee man hanging from his dick.
So he does. Don't we all? We have a wee man hanging from us.
No, like an actual person, like a soldier.
All right. Hey, well, no kink shaming here.
Aye. Plenty of kink shaming if it's weird like that. Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. Head, shoulders, knees and toes, and eyes and ears and mouth and nose.
You're right there.
Ladies, so welcome, man. I was told to make the orc. I made a orc joke today, and I think it. Yeah, 100%. It means that you're part of the cool gang.
I was told I made a Leyoric joke today. We've all had a day like that.
If you tell a joke and you can see the person's soul leave their body, you've done it right.
Yep. And see if you're lying at night and you like, you know when you have those things you think back on in life and you absolutely cringe and like you lose sleep over. You know you've made a Leyoric joke then.
100%. Was watching early gameplay of Jason Voorhees and Debbie D. Holy hell. Tomahawk, you need to teach me how to play that game. Did you know that if you rearrange the letters in Postman, they get annoyed? I did. I don't want someone hanging out with me. Imagine dragging him through the sand. Imagine taking a wee and he has to hold it for you. I think only one of us needs to press the duck, because I seem to duck whenever you press it.
Ah, okay, right.
God, where's the timeout redeem? There is none. There is none. Flim flam bam lam.
Who's he trying to time out? Oh, lady.
See, this guy's so annoyed at us, he's posting it. He's posting it.
You think he would, like,
you can telegraph all his movements.
Shit, they did.
You telegraph all his movements. Yes! You laughed and you know it, Plum. See? He tries not to laugh whenever I'm out there.
Shoot it.
Who sees boys in the background as well, just kind of standing there shooting at us? Kids.
Nice. I know, they're not even doing any harm. Sweet.
He's going for a wee jeep now.
Are they our friends? Former friends?
They're just sleeping.
Yep.
Sometimes when I fight criminals, they get really tired.
Sheva, you don't have to do this. You can still back out.
What about you?
I've got a personal stake.
Why does Chris's fist look so wide?
I know. I guess the match the rest of his body, maybe, because he's like.
Yep, maybe. Like,
What are you talking about?
He's on the roads.
Back, I received some intel that my old partner was still alive. At first, I didn't know what to think, but when I saw the data file from Delta Team, I knew for sure.
they're former friends. I thought you were talking about Flum and me, and you'd be right.
That woman in the data file.
Ah, flim flam bam lam.
Are you even sure?
Next part is my
Former friends.
favorite.
We were
Wife former. Lady.
Sure.
Wait.
Hey, Crib.
Wait. You're not going alone.
He talks like he has a mouthful of meat.
mention the
You behave yourself.
Chris, wait.
I don't have much time.
Look at the face on him. He's just so unhappy about it.
I'm going with you.
Is she shouting for the right beside each other?
Don't tell Leyoric I'm over here.
About this?
Peter,
A second ago, you
traitor.
cut and run.
I can't just turn my back and walk away.
Was
Well,
that a
welcome,
stutter
mate.
from
It's nice
Leyoric?
to have you.
Orders from here on in.
Did I stutter?
It's just us.
He stutters all the time, especially when he sees me for the first time every day.
Now let's
Yeah.
get moving.
It makes my body take a second take at him. Did I tell you though, I entered a dessert making competition the other day.
Right?
There's a worldwide dessert competition. All the countries in the world judge it. And I made a meringue. And every single country cheered for it except Australia. Because they boo meringue. They boo meringue.
Perfect timing, lady. Exactly. Aim that towards Leyoric.
It was actually Ian sent me that one, and I said it to him the other day in his chat. He's like, did I send you a joke? And I told him, he's like, oh, I did. I remember that now.
Of course. That beat you in accuracy. Enemies routed. Not sure what that means. We've got S tier, even though we're drastically different values. So we'll take it. We'll take it. Another chapter done though.
Does they confirm reports of which Resident Evil remake is next? Oh, I don't know. I'm assuming maybe one.
I heard one. Aye.
One would be the one I think they'd probably go for that would sell really well.
Kind of makes the most sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Go for the first one. Like.
I would imagine so.
2 was the obvious first choice because it was the most popular Resident Evil game, so that made the most sense. But now that people love them, like you may as well go for better. Right, I can buy guns, but I can't buy ammo.
5 would also be another contender, or maybe Code Veronica. That would be a good one.
I haven't played that.
No, the leaker just throws everything at the wall and sees what sticks. That sometimes happens as well. There's very few reliable leakers. RE6
deserves it the most. See,
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I agree. I agree. You know what? They
I
should
was
just
surprised they didn't
stop.
go with RE6 first.
They need to stop development of every. See, when RE9 came out, I thought, oh, the 9 upside down is a 6, so that maybe that's what that is. But I was disappointed it wasn't RE6. I like RE0.
Nothing but good things about it.
Zero's quite good. Hook, you streamed that as well, didn't you? The one with the train and stuff.
Zero.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did 0 through 4 prior to this. Just the mainline games. Like Zero's fantastic. Apart from, it has a wild habit. The inventory management's a bit shit on it. That's the only thing I'd say. And it has a wild habit of you go into an account and you have no resources. As soon as you finish that encounter and go through the next door, there's resources everywhere.
The leaker's called Dusk Golem, and he's they're remaking 1.5, Code Veronica, and 0. Yeah. I like it here. Over with Hooks.
5. I wonder what they'll change in 5. There's more to really put it back in.
Probably add more horror.
Is there really? Okay.
He was a top official with Umbrella, the leader of our stars unit.
Back in item boxes, that was the worst part watching you play that. The lack of item boxes.
That's the main inventory management. It was awful.
Was there co-op on that, or was it single player? Co-op would have been good on it.
It was co-op.
So we paid him a visit, hoping he'd lead us to Wesker.
Single player.
It's single player only, right? Okay. There's himself.
Really accurate.
There's himself. Look at him.
So it is. I need to start a blasting. What the fuck? Why is he in the Matrix? He's Nightcrawler actually. What?
The 5 and 6 and Outbreak, all single player, right? Okay. And 6 is your favorite film, Mush? That's what you were saying earlier.
That's what he was telling me. Yeah.
Universally, like Tomahawk and everything confirms it. Love Matrix. It must have been shortly after the Fallen's come out. They're like, let's make Wesker Neo.
He's a blonde.
That's what he's playing next. Exactly. He loves it so much, he's talked his wife into playing it now.
I think Lamar should leash down on Resident Evil 6. Like speed run it, challenge runs, all that stuff.
Every stream, constantly. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Because there's a market for it. You know, there's a gap in the market.
Oh, yeah. Between 5 and 7, I think.
Everything said on the internet is true. This is true. Hook 7'3".
Yep. Can we all get t-shirts as well?
Tomahawk. 100%. I think we should. Jesus.
Holy shit. But he's just going to teleport away.
No, this is a flashback. That's not us.
I was so confused.
Asher, what's happening?
Asher, welcome in. Good to see you, my friend. He can't teleport. Well, what was he doing in that room then?
He's just extremely fast.
Kira,
Akira, what's the story? It's too fucking hot. What temperature would it be, Akira? Tell us. Oh no, he's in your chat. Don't tell us. It's not fucking working, Hook's chat.
I forgot to set it up.
It's only me. It's gonna be me.
It's
you
alright
can
for
select
us
for commands so I can share
it'll
chat.
get freezing next month.
Ready?
You can select
Good idea.
commands for it. Can you? Seriously?
You know,
The death of her parents? Right, okay.
It's not even a command. It is an action that looks at chat.
Well, that's true, actually.
Okay.
I'll set it up for next stream. Be grand.
32 here right now. England is getting a little bit tighter than us. We are mid-20s. Not too bad.
Mid-20s. It was 23 today, so it was, yeah. Yesterday was like 26 or something. Though.
Yesterday was quite bad. It was so warm.
Chris was streaming today, and it was 33 degrees when he was streaming this morning.
How do we
in
tiny
Netherlands, in England.
Had a wee tiny person beside me as well, cheering, going, "Yay, Leyoric! Yay, yay!" Not a big fan. Not a big fan.
I hate this place. They were friends with benefits. Who was? What
Beast Slit. Ooh.
So
Yeah,
Flemish
steady
says he didn't teleport. He's just extremely fast. But how do you explain him turning into like dust and then appearing at the other side of the room? If he was extremely fast, it would be like a flash where you would see like a blur. You know what I mean?
You know what? Hook, you're talking
get the sumo
sense.
guys on it.
You're talking sense here.
Get the sumo guys on it. Came up to my PC as Mrs. is watching shit. Instant regret. Oh, dude. Kira, I worked downstairs today.
You need
Usually I
hand
work at this
bolts?
desk. I took my laptop downstairs. Yes, I do. I took my laptop downstairs because I was like, I am not hanging out in that heat. Right, I'm slowly remembering the controls here.
My advice, explore.
What was reload again?
Each other's body. It is aim and then A or X or whatever.
A. Right, okay. I can change weapons. Okay. Aim. Hit the hold left.
The evidence
gathered
gathered
for your knife.
thus far, it would appear that
Right, okay.
most of the Delta team has been
What's
wiped
this?
out between the time where they requested backup and the time they reached the area. One of their beacons is still transmitting an active signal. We moved to intercept with the possibility of survivors. When en route, the beacon's transmission ceased, judging by the last transmission of the beacon to be just ahead in our current position. There is a sealed door currently blocking our route, so infiltration may prove difficult.
Right.
Okay, we're door explorers.
I found us some shiny loot there. That's all that matters.
Shiny loot.
And we can sell it for bolts. Right. So we can't go this way.
I don't think we can
I'll
open
take
it.
Can we go around the outside? Maybe.
Do we have to go under the water? Or no, we can get on the boat. We can get back on the boat.
Oh, let's just leave.
Hey, just go home. Job done.
Explore.
Game completed. Explore. Explore. This is like RE4.
On the outside.
Right, there's a bone over here.
Lazy. Welcome back.
Lazy,
What is
what's
the
the
crack?
story? Explains why...
Sit and learn. Explains why Leyoric.
Oh, you son of a bitch! I went on this chat the other day when I came back and I was all, well, this is my favorite streamer from Larn.
I was lurking it. I couldn't fucking get chatting, unfortunately. But welcome back, dude. How was the trip? I had no doubt you had a fantastic time.
Tit for tat, sir. Tit. Boob for moob.
Tit for tat. Now, is there a map?
I don't know. I'm just driving. Just driving.
Right. It was incredible. Amazing. Amazing. I knew it would be. I'm jealous. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. I'm very jealous.
I would love to go as
Got a
well.
whole 3-hour slideshow of pictures. I must go back and watch a wee bit.
I would love to go, but Hooke will never take me.
Well, you play your cards right, like.
Oh, so if they put out for you to take me to Japan? Fuck off.
Oh, of course. And you need to teach me how to use chopsticks.
Man, just buy some. Like, they're really, really cool.
Oh.
Ooh, who's this boy?
He doesn't look happy. There he is.
No, he doesn't.
How could someone do this to them?
Very easy.
Fuck. They're running.
Jesus, did they keep up like the rock? I have no bullets left. Well, that'll do it. Can you get back up? No. I'd have seen you doing parkour there.
Parkour. They're on both sides of us, man.
I know.
Parkour.
I need bullets. Park on shelves, thank you very much. We reload. Quick. 2 for 1. Nice. What? I'm doing the kip up.
Finally. Shoot him in the dick.
Ah, he's left the rock. The shotgun shells. Nice. Do we have to kill
I
him?
don't know if it's just me, but Leyoric's a bit on the quiet side. He did that. He does that on purpose. He doesn't want me sounding good on his stream.
On my stream? Right, okay. Perfect. I'll fix him now in a second. Thank you
He
very
hates
much.
me. He hates me.
Oh shit, there's somebody behind us. Ow. Like again, I can't remember how I healed, mind you. Oh, off with your head. Right. I think we're good. How do you heal again?
There's you have any healing items? There's a herb here if you want it.
How do I get onto the wee menu again? That's what I'm wondering.
It's... Why?
Oh, right,
Tell me
why?
why.
Yeah, there we go. I don't... I can combine these, can't I? Combine... Yes. Use. There we go.
Have you on full volume and almost not... See, he was complaining earlier it was too loud, and now he's complaining, and now he's turning me down, making me all quiet.
He's still barely there.
Wild
Right, okay, I'll turn him up now. What happened last week, Lazy, was before Leyoric went live, his PC decided to be a twat. And his audio's devices all reset, so he was very quiet. So he's fixed it this week. So we'll see now. I turned him up with Chunk there. You can let me know what it's like.
You just call me Chunk.
Aye, of course. You are my Chunk.
You son of a bitch.
Right, let's see.
Resident Evil. Random question. Why do they bubble up and disappear when you kill them?
I don't know.
I think it's just to do with the infection, really, isn't it?
It's like a parasite inside them. Like us, like this game is like Resident Evil 4, where everybody's not actually a zombie. They have a parasite inside them.
Donde estás?
Yeah, exactly. Donde está. The only Spanish I know because of Resident Evil 4.
You want the real answer, the stupid one? Always the stupid one. At all times, the stupid one. We do not accept the normal, real, or canon answers here.
Because of Doomsman? Oh, of course.
Because of Doomsman? Yes. I swear to God, I don't know if I'm actually playing Resident Evil now or I'm still in a Death Stranding ending. I have no fucking idea anymore.
That game is batshit crazy.
It is. I think we're back on the boat now. Infected with a parasite, there's also technical reason is due to the limitations of PS3. All right. There we go. There's the actual reason.
Okay, right, okay. You take me back. Golden age of gaming. Telling you. It's secret ending.
What's happening?
Kojima, motherfucker. And
Oh, fucking... Hang on, can we... No.
Me what?
Mansplaining. Oh fuck.
Oh shit. Ruh-roh.
Ruh-roh.
Right, I have 2 bullets in my rifle.
Well, you're the one shooting, I'm the one driving. Up to you, kid.
Can you stay still or not?
No, I can't stay still.
Well, I can't aim when you're wasn't about like a lunatic.
You can't aim when I'm still either, apparently.
I shot him. I'm telling you, I did.
Did you? Oh, fuck.
Yes. You're,
right. I cannot stay still. They're fucking throwing explosives at us. I'm just going to round around circle. You need to anticipate. You need to anticipate. Can enemy by the looks of it. I have loads of ammo, yeah.
I don't know. I'll have my machine gun first. Let's use this first. Fuck. I'm wasting my ammo here because my laser keeps moving when you turn the boat.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll just sit here and wait for the explosives to hit us.
It's impossible to aim. I'm telling you, it's impossible.
Why is it only me taking damage? Just the stickhead's the one missing.
Because
there's so much
you keep changing the angle. I line my shot up and you move. See? Right, I'm not shooting. I'm just going to stand here and let you die. See? There we go. Thank you.
Your man's getting up. He's getting up.
I've got him. Sorry.
Those are explosive arrows. They were fucking watching Rambo.
Right, you're back.
I don't know where
Sweet.
we're going.
There we go. There we go. What the fuck? That one come from?
No idea.
Ah, fuck him. We got through. Sorry.
Oh, there's explosives. They're in the water. Lads are in the water.
Can you run them over?
I'll give it a go. Yep.
You can. Love it.
Ramp. No, it's not a ramp. Fuck.
I think we're in the clear, though.
We're in the open seas now.
Right, sweet.
You need to be drinking. No, wait. This is the group you can't skip. Just realize you're going out and not into the area. What?
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 What do you mean?
What?
Oh, he says you can just bypass those guys anyway. He means like we were locked down. We had to shoot them people.
Right, okay. Doesn't matter.
We're back at the start.
Is this no, it's not. It's a different door.
Yep. Enjoying the sun on the new Forza is quite fun. It is, actually.
Right, fellas, going for a cold shower. Need to get into the oven. The PC. Man, fair play. I completely
No
understand
worries,
that.
Akira.
Because
Thanks for stopping by, man.
when the PC's on as well, it's even worse.
Oh, it's brutal. What was that?
It's a map.
Oh, a map. Finally. Right, there we go. Right, so RB brings the map up temporarily. Insert slate. Ah, so we have more bits to get.
I have 2 of them here.
Oh, right, okay. I was able to insert one there as well.
Oh, right. But no, we both are carrying the same ones.
Right,
We have to
right,
get, looks like we have
one
to get
each,
2 more.
right, okay. Yeah. You need a heal. Never mind that.
Yeah, do you want to drive for a bit? Because I have ammo.
Sure. Yeah, I don't. I have not very
Annihilator,
much ammo.
don't talk to me about Forza because a few times you've beat me in races. You've knocked me at the very end.
Look at my naked
Motherfucker
streak.
stole my
Look
big
at
fan.
the 45 stream streak, Annihilator. You absolute
Okay, yes,
madman.
shit,
Thank
shout
you very
downstairs
much.
now. No way, Kira. Tons of bitches.
Right, where are we going here, Leyoric, do you think, on the wee map? So we've been to the red X's, haven't we?
I can't see anything.
No, press RB on your controller. R1.
Ah, there we go. Yeah. So it's the one up there. Up that way. This one.
Go this way.
Oh, there's a boat. Go to the boat.
Let's have a joke. One of us is an Annihilator's boat from a...
It 100% does. Look at it.
The one that they sank head on.
When they just drove under the ships without having any form of fucking...
Here, do you want that, actually?
Yeah, please.
Let's see. Where the fuck did it... Oh, there it is. Give. There you go.
Robin is racing the arc, and Drivatar feels the exact same way. Is our Drivatars real?
Shit. They must be real people. Or they're just messing with us. An RPG. I'll take that.
What, like a Final Fantasy game?
Yeah. It says in the description there that FF8 equals shit. I don't know what that means.
What are you talking about? No.
Why do you sound like you're from Belfast there?
Because I am. I'm from Larne. Fuck you.
Why? I'm trying to get on the boat and instead, are you in a menu or something? It keeps like locking on to you.
No, I'm busy. I'm busy.
Right, okay. Oh, you're my jet. Robin is racy, and my drive car feels the same way. I saw it on Star Wars, okay. It'd be amazing if they did, like, use your ghost, your drive car was like you. That would be class. Did they not do that, actually? So say we're all friends. Because whenever I was playing it, I seen, like, Leyoric and Dean, for example. I'll get on it now in a second. I'm buzzing now. You were buzzing. I seen that there was scores. You know, whenever you do like a drift or something like that.
Yeah.
It pops up on screen. Yeah.
See, the Drivatar is something that
there we go.
Drivatar is something that they've introduced a while back, where it's apparently supposed to match your driving style, but I think it's very, very generic because how would they store that much data?
Well, that's true.
I think it's bullshit. I think it's just all made up. They just stick your name on it, and it's just like, oh, it's your Drivatar.
It has a lot of data, look.
Machine gun ammo over here.
Oh, nice. Hold on, there's a wee buggy down here that I can't get at the minute. And my bolts back on, that'd be white. Thank you.
What are you trying to shoot? Why does it say jump down? Why would I want to jump down there?
Ooh, there's like a fish in the water there. You can jump down because there's like a wee collectible here. Fucking no bolts.
If I go on and I die, I'm going to kill you.
Hold on, I'm going yet.
Now you picked up on Hooke, starting a conversation with.
Maybe you can't shoot that. Oh, sorry.
Say we were all friends. Right now. I fucking hate you bastards. Where did you go?
Machine gun. Oh.
Ah. I got that thing. Right, so is that it?
I think so. Oh, hold on, there's a ladder over here. Did you go up this?
Yeah, that I already got the item up there. It wasn't any of the pieces. It was just it was like a cup.
Right, okay.
Ruthie had left it up there. Admire cup.
I still don't like that sprint is left stick.
Right. There's a place in the looks to be in the middle as well. You see it?
Oh, aye, true, aye. Right. Let's go
Is
for
this
that one.
place going to be X'd out now? No, it's not. That place isn't X'd out either, which is a bit worrisome.
I think it's because there isn't a door there, though. Maybe it's
You
the
sure?
doors that have been X'd out. No, I'm not sure, like, but maybe.
There we go. This place in the middle, sure, and we see what the crack is.
Yeah. We can come back in. So we're looking for another piece of the puzzle, basically.
Yes. I can. Oh, stop! Go back! I found a thing. Reverse. I just stopped there. Wait. Move forward a wee bit. You've now blocked me out. You tiny bit. There. Stop.
Tap it in.
I can't. Why won't you aim?
Can you jump out?
No. Go and go back a wee bit. Nuns! Reverse! No, just keep going for a wee bit. Just so I can get this dickhead thing.
Fair enough.
Wee bit more. See, because I can't actually move. There, stop. There we go.
Ah, nice. You got it. Right, so I'm assuming we can get in there now and pick that up, whatever the pickup is.
Oh, no, we've already got it.
Yeah.
I've handed this already.
Oh, right, okay.
I have ads starting up as well.
What the fuck was that? Oh, we can pause then if you want. You want to take a break?
No. Just keep going. Just letting you know. You probably have ads as well coming up.
Right, okay. I do in 3 minutes. Nice. Right, we're not shooting the chickens. Right, let's not do that.
That always goes badly in games. Never shoot the chickens.
Oh, eggs. I'm assuming we can eat them. What are you vandalizing?
I would imagine.
Oh, what did I find? Chalice.
See, that's what I found
finally.
on the other side as well. Where is all the fucking things open that door?
I don't know.
Oh shit! I picked up machine gun ammo.
Out. That's right. You can
Here,
always drop.
I'll fire it over to you.
I'll drop you an egg.
Yay! Egg.
There we go.
Eat. Nom 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 nom. Nom nom nom.
Ammo has been scarce so far.
Use the chalice to make hard boiled. Is that a thing? I bought a egg cooker the other day, and it's a wee one. You put water in it, and it just like cooks eggs 3 different ways. But it's because my wee boy keeps burning all the frying pans, making himself eggs. And to date, I have used it. He has not.
Typical. One of the best things I ever bought for doing eggs is I like a good poached egg. No, what happened at like lunch or breakfast or something?
Oh no, it's not. It's not. It's an electrical device, so it's like a wee gadget, and you set the hard-boiled eggs on, or you crack them and put them on, and then you put water in it, and it just cooks them yourself. Like you said, egg cooker, also one of those too. Yes. Her name's Michelle.
That's Michelle.
We've been here, man. No, we've been there.
Yeah.
We've been there.
No, that's right. I was just investigating. Right. So I'm guessing straight ahead's where we come in.
Yeah, I think it is. Yes. That's
Was there any
excellent.
settlement down that way.
Legolas, I'm let you have that one.
Use the chalice to make the hard-boiled eggs. Plenty water and
Plenty
vinegar.
water
You
and
needed a good poached egg plus some cheese and ooh.
Yeah,
Fancy.
that's actually true. Yeah. But it's not even just for me. It's for my wee boy to stop burning fucking pots. And he always goes, I don't do it. And then I come in and I find eggs burnt, crusted onto a pot or a pan. I'm like, fuck's sake.
And the thing is with non-stick pans, if you burn something often enough, it loses the non-stick, and then it becomes.
You simply start eating the stick.
Right, I now have ads starting.
Whoop,
You wanna?
No, keep. We're just driving around looking anyway. Sure, it's grand.
Right, okay, fair enough. So, that's right.
Right,
ads will be starting soon, folks.
Maybe it's in here somewhere.
It must be. We did leave in a bit of a haste, so
we did, but we did get through there, murder everybody inside, and then explore.
I think. I'm being cautious.
Oh, burning non-sticks. Oh, I know. But all you have to do is pour a bit of hot water in it. Steep it, son. Steep it. But no.
You know what the trick is to clean a non-stick or to clean a pan after you're done using it. If you've boiled a kettle, or just stick it back on and let it boil the water, it'll just clean itself. It's amazing.
I fire a wee bit of fairy up on it and put up hot water.
Let's get out and have a look. Yeah.
Then you can just rub on off.
Of course. I'm better than that. Right, let's have a joke. Maybe we missed something.
See, this is where we got one of them.
Yeah.
Plates.
That's
and
right.
that's why I was. Yeah.
Right, note in there. I don't think. Nope. Right this way.
I don't think there's anything else here. I think we found it all. It's got to be in one of them other locations.
Right. Okay. Do you want to drive in?
Giggity. Yeah, because it went so well last time.
Yeah. But there's nothing shooting at us now. No.
No, that's true. What's up there? Can you get up there? No.
No, I'm sticking the same, but there's no ladder.
Well,
Right,
that'll be a
it's not
step
here
in the
then.
right
We know that
direction.
for sure. We know that for sure.
For sure, to be sure, to be sure.
Right, you're driving. Can I shoot you?
No, we tried this on the first one.
No.
There's no friendly fire.
Science.
Science!
That didn't come on as right. Leave it out.
Why don't we check around here, around the other side of it? Nah, fuck all.
So,
right.
It's obviously either in the center or the top left then.
Looks managed to get Jedi Fallen Order.
Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor for 10 or each.
Ooh,
no
excellent.
Way.
Both phenomenal games.
I will get the Survivor. I really enjoyed Fallen Order, you know. Especially that ending. I was so shocked.
Your face. Oh, it was so good.
Oh man. Just
I probably shouldn't say your face. Oh, so good. Right.
The first time he said it.
Over
Survivor
here.
was wank for me. You see, stuttering mess. I do remember that when it launched, you know. It's been an absolute mess.
Yeah. It's the same with anything Square Enix launches as well. It normally launches in a horrible state. The guy up there, do you see him?
Yes, hold on, sorry, I didn't even have my controller in my hand. Stand, stay still, stay still.
There's two of them actually, but one of them's facing the other way.
Bolts. Bolts. No.
No, we'll go around, we'll go around, we'll go around. Oh, there's boys over there too. Shit.
Stay still.
I'm just going to drive past them. Fuck them.
Okay. Right, so that's where we need to go in.
But
if there's no people there, then we haven't...
over here. Over here, let's sweep this.
Uh-huh. We were here.
Were we? I don't think so.
Yep. No, we were.
Well, how come we didn't have... how come we didn't have guys shooting at us? They did despawn. They fucking
did.
have to.
So I can't even take them out in here. Bastards.
You know what? Maybe we have to go to the Axis. Maybe that's our problem.
Oh, maybe. Right.
The Axis is the place we didn't go. No.
Right. Maybe then let's give it a go and see. Or maybe we can't get in. Maybe that's what it means.
Oh no, we can. We just didn't go. We just didn't go to where the X marks the spot. Let's not go to there then.
Checkpoint. Oh, hold on. Can you swim or do you day?
No, we're walking. Although I don't like that music.
On that water, you know.
100%. I can hear it.
I'm going to stand and see if something eats you for science.
Oh, fair play. Aye. Such a brave man, letting the woman go first. Women and children first. I could see you aiming at me, you cunt. Oh, what's that? It's a crocodile.
It's a croc.
Run!
Idiot.
Shotgun.
I think it's dead. I think it's dead. Yeah.
Is it?
Nice.
It's not. The music's still going, man.
Paul. Oh, maybe.
Well, Paul, what is happening? Nice cool water. Oh, if only there's crocodiles in it. There's crocodiles.
Yeah, you're completely right. This is what we need today. The fucking heat. Come on. Is it still alive?
Yep, still going. Music's still going, man.
I have an RPG. Hold on.
I would give Wild Paw, say that one of my mods, give Wild Paw a shout out, but I'm fucking playing him.
Oh,
not in a fun way. Are you still up there hiding?
It's for science. There's more than one. By the way, there's one coming behind you now. I can't kill you.
You fucking son of a bitch.
You said I couldn't hurt you.
I didn't think you were going to fire a rocket launcher at me. You didn't even kill the crocodile. I'm dying. Thanks for shooting, not a problem, Paul. Anybody's not following Wild Paul in chat, please do so. Don't follow Hooke though, because he shoots his friends with rocket launchers. Wasn't even a good RPG. It wasn't like wasn't Final Fantasy 8.
Oh, amazing.
Was it?
Worth it.
Was it amazing?
Yep. That was good.
I mean, it was certainly something. It was something. It was something. This is why we can't have nice things. Two handsome men.
What is happening?
Chrissy, you watching something? Are you watching Tango and Cash? Is that what you're saying that for?
Chrissy, what is the crack? How are you, my friend? Good to see you. Two handsome men with guns, yes, and I just blew Leyoric up with an RPG. We established that there wasn't friendly, like you couldn't hurt each other, and then I shot an RPG at Leyoric to test that for science. Fun fact, I did kill him.
Yes, that's true.
Right.
He also wouldn't come under the water to help me kill the alligator. He was too afraid.
Nope. Still can't buy ammo. This is well annoying.
It is a wee bit.
Alright, do I have an egg? That'll do. I was going to say you had no sound on your redeem hook, but I was being a dummy and your tab was muted again. See. Did dumbass.
Thank you, Annihilator. I thank you for your loyalty.
Did that last time too. It's easy to get confused though. I've done that in the past when I've had Flemish and Sierra tabbed up at the same time, and I forget which tab I'm on. Do it all the time. Right. Again, for science, I'm going to stand on the sidelines.
You better not.
Yeah. I wonder if we can even kill this thing. Right. How about you don't go near it and I'll use the RPG this time and see what happens.
Yeah, do that.
Maybe it despawns, but I see you need to be in the water for a bit.
I don't think that's true. I think you're making that up just to get me.
You're the master baiter. Like,
right.
We need you in the water.
There he is.
Right. See.
I think it's still alive, man. Music's still going. It didn't drop anything.
RPG,
that would drop something.
No,
it's not the other one. It's the same one.
It's exactly the same. It's a different film, Ted. It's a different shark. Hold on. Oh, I have grenades. Hold on. Hand grenade. Equip.
Fucking.
This will go well.
Reverse Bruno Mars, sir.
I'm playing both sides, so I always come out on top. I remember you saying that Annihilator when we played Portal. There's two of them there. There's one behind you and one in front of you.
I can see that.
I did not throw that far enough. Oh. Nor that. That was a waste of time.
Right, this is a waste of ammo. I think we just need to run.
Yeah, I think you just run. Let me know if you get there. Can you get out of the water?
Yeah, you actually not coming with me?
No, I'll come in a minute. Once I know you're safe.
I am fine. I am on the other side.
Shit.
No, you have to make a 3 deckhead.
Where are you?
I'm up here.
There's loads of them.
Go under the building. Under the building, there's a ladder.
Okay. See it. I made it.
Fucking, where'd these two boys come out of? They're on the roof. They're fucking everywhere.
Fuck out of here. Give me that bolts.
Lenny, what is happening? Ahoy, I'll be lurking.
Lenny.
I'm dead tired, but want to join in and say, Lenny, welcome on.
Welcome
Lenny
on,
is, this is Grim Lenny, not to be confused with Lenny CX. This is Grim Lenny. Definitely drop her a follow. She is hilarious. Really, really good streamer.
Lenny
good for,
is lovely.
Met her through Reddit. And you only meet the best people through Reddit. Yeah, oh, to be fair, I think
rarely steers us wrong. To be fair,
to be fair, I think most of us we've met through Reddit. Hooke, I only met you through Reddit, and I worked with you before you started streaming.
It is mental the amount of times I'll go on there random streaming Reddit. Get the fuck out of here. Ah, there we go.
The last one, do you reckon?
Got it.
Oh no, we still have another.
We're up
We
to
still have another area. There's
Chris Akira, what is the crack? Thank you very much for the ASMR reading. You know, Chris has been playing Dark Souls 1. It's like a permadeath randomized run recently. Love it. A lot of fun to watch. Although he keeps standing for a long amount of time beside Andre.
evening, Chris. What is happening?
Frick.
Shakira, Akira.
I hope you're well.
Right, we have to go back to the crocodiles again.
Aye. But that's grand.
Is it? Is it? Because last time you left me to go on my own.
That was for science. And we established that it was fine.
My fucking arse?
Nobody got hurt. There was no Leyorics hurt in the making of this video. On the outside. Doo, doo, doo.
I'm raging we kind of wasted that rocket launcher.
I did.
How did you die?
I got hit. What do you think? I got stung by a jellyfish.
For science, you would need to replicate the results. Let's need to replicate that man's
That's
fist.
true. That's true. I'm not mad. I'm having fun. Right, let's see. I wonder, Leyoric, just purely for science, right? You know how I was on about we can't see when each hour's redeems go off?
Yeah.
I wonder if for your streamer bot, we set something up so that, like, say, I'd have a dock on my OBS that I would see when your redeems go off that I could see just in my OBS.
Just you could have it probably as a message come through.
I know it doesn't really matter, but I'm just curious about it. That's all. You know what I mean?
Oh, we could. I reckon we could.
And like
You
a
could have
message or something coming through would be really simple.
Why? You could probably as well maybe put a indicator on each of the start of the names of our redeems, and that way you could have StreamerBot look for it. Did you buy another rocket launcher?
Yes, of course. Why not?
Because you wasted it last time. Oh, do we have to go and do all this
Do we need
again?
to go back in here? Do we need to?
I think so. Is it still on the map?
Yeah, it still looks unexplored on the map. Right, we know where we're going at least. Right, so
Come on,
you
you
go
in
first.
as well, dickhead.
I'm coming. Don't get it.
You're the one that died last time.
Oh, like stung by a jellyfish. Crocodile didn't get me. Ooh, did you find loot? Climb.
Yep.
Right, sweet.
Right, they're all above you. They're all above you.
I can't see them. Oh. Reloading. Nice. Teamwork. Okay, there's handgun ammo there, which apparently I
There's
don't
machine
need,
gun ammo.
which is bullshit.
There's machine
I
gun
have no
ammo.
handgun
there.
ammo, but it's telling me I'm full. That doesn't make sense.
You have too many items. You can only hold a certain amount.
Ah, bollocks. That's what it is. Let's see. Combine RPG. Right, I'll just eat the egg then.
Eat the egg.
There we go. That's better. Sweet. Chris Akira, what is the crack? How did the rest of your day go, by the way? I missed the end of the stream. Chris, how did your last run end? Because obviously when I left, it was going very well. I'm curious to know how it ended, though.
Roar!
Oh, we good? Gold? Nice. Right. We good?
Yeah, don't die.
Oh, you're back in the water already? No bother to you. Went the wrong way. Jump down. Shit, the croc trip saved me. That doesn't help. Right, if I run behind it, that'll help. That's not good. I think I'm good. Sweet.
There we go. Sorted.
Weebles.
Sorted.
That was easy.
But now the last area, which has an X on it that we were completely avoiding.
Us thinking we were efficient to make cross those two areas out. Was not the case.
We're like, why are these other areas not crossing out? Maybe we're missing something. No, we're just dumbasses.
Critical thinking. That's what we're missing. Right.
Any thinking
So,
we were missing?
well, wronger.
I think because this is the last one, some big fella's going to show up.
Yeah.
Some to chainsaw
Another
motherfucker.
ogre, probably.
You need incendiary grenades?
I will take any type of grenade. Emerald. Oh, hold on. I need that handgun ammo, but I can't lift it.
Do you want to give me something?
Let's see. No, you're full as well, so I can't. I can discard the grenade, which should drop it on the ground. Oh, good man.
Just use that health, just in case I need to pick something else up.
Yeah. Right, anything else? Read the document. Trigger an enemy will give you an opening to get close enough to fight it directly. Oh, I forgot about that you can do melee. Right, okay.
You didn't notice I was doing like backflips and shit?
I forgot about it just. Machine gun ammo? Nice. Let's combine. I think it only carries 60 rounds. Oh no, it's 45.
Bum 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 bum
Right.
bum bum.
So I have a slot, that's good.
I don't like it when you call me that.
We've discussed this. Stop it.
Fuck, I'm in the office tomorrow. Boo. Boo this house.
Sucker. Did I tell you I was off the rest of the week?
Yeah, you did, I.
No, just so you know, in case you forgot. Off the rest of the week. Radio Ross Harbour with the wifey. Wow.
And you didn't even bring me. Oh, what's this? There's 2 boxes in here. This looks like shenanigans.
Scared the shit out of me, Happy Irishman. Thank you very much.
Definite shenanigans. Up there, up on the things.
Yeah.
One of them doesn't have a ladder.
Crazy, thank you for the streak. Hanson, are you playing the Elden of Rings? I'm not going to assume.
Oh, I don't like it when a game gives you loads of ammo, especially a Resident Evil game.
I know this. Shit's about to go down here.
Assist jump.
Okay.
Assist me.
I'm going to be left down here, aren't I?
Yes. Right, it
Sucker,
is
sucker.
not what we're looking for, so it must be the other one.
Right, one down now. Oh, I thought it was going to let me up. The fuck?
Right, we've got it. Shaman slate. There we go. Mr. Loverman. Shaman. Look at us. Wait.
That ain't good.
No. I'll stay up here for science.
Sure. Can't argue with that logic. Oh shit, I forgot you can do melee. You need to start doing that.
Science.
He's coming around the outside, is it? There's somebody beside me. Not you. Shit. Thankfully he just decided to ignore me there. It was very nice of him. Any ammo for me? Nope. Oh,
Shama,
shit.
shama, shama,
Good
shama,
tune.
shama, chameleon.
Oh, let me in. You're blocking me.
Rock blocking you.
Shit. Need to reload. Right, he's hiding. Give me that.
Oh, damn, I missed a lot. Please start over. Tank needs to start the stream over again.
Tank,
Do it,
what
do
is the
it.
crack?
What?
Do it. Do it. What the heck is that?
I know, but it's a dead one of these. I am low on ammo.
Yeah.
Was that machine gun? That doesn't do me any good.
Whoa. Machine gun ammo? I'll take that. Right. I think we're good.
Come on.
Didn't mean to do that.
Why you shouldn't come on to me for? I'm out here. There's rifle ammo and handgun ammo out here for you.
Ah, brilliant.
What is this?
Thank you.
Ruby! Ruby!
Rubies? Yeah, I shot it down there.
I shot it down. Don't you take the credit for things I did. I shot it down.
I shot it down. No, I shot it down.
Fucking, we'll go back to the VOD later. What's this? Shoot an enemy will give you an opening. Oh, so where you shoot an enemy will determine the type of attack. And Hooke is a type of attack. I knew it. I fucking knew it.
Yep. Sure is. You're on it, Crizzy. Good man yourself. I knew you would be. Shama, shama, shama. Most kills trophy for you pair. Make it competitive, you say?
Right, so now we go back to that door.
Yes, I believe so. We have all the pieces.
Right, we don't need to shoot any of these guys. It's a waste of ammo.
Yep. Just book it.
Can you dig it? Okay.
What a I loved Booker T back in the day, you know. Loved them. I seen a story the other day that, do you remember when he debuted the whole invasion angle? And he came out and he put Austin through an announce table. He broke like three vertebrae or something in Austin's back or whatever. And obviously Vince and everyone was like really hot about it. Was like, you're done. Austin personally went and was like, nah, that was a freak accident. I want the opposite. I think he's brilliant. And that's how the whole supermarket, like, attack angle came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make it a crack course challenge. Don't tell Reddy. Reddy already knows. Reddy's everywhere. Reddy's in the house with me now. Looking at me. I don't know why, but anyway, if we get my favorite weapon's always a pistol. See when you can upgrade in the Resident Evil game, your pistol is like Resident Evil 4, the Red 9. Amazing.
You're right, the Red 9 was class.
We are low in ammo though going into this.
We are. But we're always low in ammo.
We're okay up until last.
Ammo, though. That's the thing. Well done.
You want to help open this door?
No, I don't. I was checking something there. There. What did I? We need to update our Crackboard game, actually. We didn't update it for the end of May.
No.
We need to do that.
Reddy's running away with it, though.
Oh, I know. Shapeback. I won Halo and that was about it.
I've been second and third. Never won any of them. Thought I had Sonic then. Thought I had Sonic then.
I thought you were going to nail Sonic as well, and then Reddy just, I don't know, cheated, I think. Thought that was Kamikaze Birds there for a second. No.
I think Leon's starting pistol in RE4 remake, or the Red 9 is amazing. Even you upgrade the Red 9 and get the stock and all for it, it's a beast.
Oh, it just that's like an absolute truck. Checkpoint. Okay. Right. Can we hang back a second? I need the bathroom.
Yeah, no worries.
So.
Will we just take a wee 5-minute break?
Aye, will we just run our ads? Sure. Take a break.
Yeah, we'll
sit
here with the game and we'll both run ads and be back in a wee second.
That's good. All right. No worries.
So we mind like usual. It's the wee game's going to come up. It's exclamation mark vote 1 for the first one, exclamation mark vote 2 for the second one. We'll see you if the ads are done.
Roll up, bring your flame. Set the bracket, call the name. Final line is right here. Maybe it's the map, maybe the fight, maybe the jump that feels just right. Maybe a quest, maybe a ring, maybe the score that makes you sing. Pick your king, pick your crown, turn that down, upside down. Every fan, hands up high, only one can wear the sky. Vote it up now, greatest game, say it loud. Vote it up now, one more round, crowd the crowd. Final Fantasy, Zelda 2, Mario, Sonic over you. Street Fighter, bring the fire, make the world you admire. No slow talk, no small pride. Stand your ground, choose your side. Old school love, new school heat. All time and names on the street. One last shout, one last wave. Tell the world what game you crave.
I think he's nearly back.
I'm back.
He's back. What's the
You
crack?
just back that second as well?
No, I was chatting for like 30 seconds and I seen that you weren't there.
Ah, right, okay. No. I was running to the bathroom. What one? What game won? Ooh, Final Fantasy 9.
Oh.
That Bearish made sure of it.
That's 9. Ooh.
Fair play. Does that spam your chat as well when it does it?
Yeah, I can see it in chat too, yeah.
Maybe I should limit
I
that.
don't mind that though, it's alright. Well, don't be... What, do you mean end the shared chat or something?
No. I just mean limit the amount that writes back to chat.
Oh,
probably doesn't need each
For
round.
the vote counted.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. For the result of each round, it's probably not needed. I know what you mean. I refused to vote after it didn't count. I held Eldivers 2 vote. Annihilator, you know what it does? I have this in good authority. Happy Irishman bribes Leyoric. Are you back in the game?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus, you didn't even say.
I thought we were jumping straight back on. Fuck.
It's your own fault, you man. Right, I'm back. I have it in good authority. Annihilator. Happy Irishman has bribed Leyoric. Favoritism.
Did that not count? Annihilator's vote there now?
What? I don't know. I was away having a pee. Actually, I had a great time. I scared the shit out of Mrs. Hooke as well. Did I go the right way? I don't even know. Right here? No, I did not. Mrs. Hooke was drying her hair. Didn't hear me coming. And behind, I went, "Wah!" Scared the shit out of her. It's great. Leyoric wants to shoot. He does. Just
No messing.
They're introducing a PvE only Dark Zone. Ooh.
Oh, so did you do it from Hooke's chat? Is that why?
Annihilator, you may have done goofed.
Yeah, you done fucked up. You done fucked up, Aaron. But I'm still huffing. Oh my god.
Why does it keep switching back to the machine gun there? Or the... Yeah, machine gun. What was going on down here? Whack-a-mole?
Oh, it was spikes. Spikes popped up so I couldn't get out.
I'm shooting nothing here. Jesus. Who was it? Legolas? You're dead. Don't tell mommy.
Oh, there's two of them. Fuck.
Oh. How many bolts? That doesn't help.
Doesn't help.
It's
alright, I have an idea.
I have a grenade actually.
Do that. And it did nothing. Fuck.
Oh shit.
I'm dying. Thank you.
I decided to heal spray you there. Right, let's retreat. Funnel them a wee bit. We're getting surrounded. I think you have to melee those big guys. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to.
I'm trying to cover you here, but... Oh shit. I was stuck in
You
a
alright?
reload animation, I couldn't move. Probably not. Oh, what? Just wafted through his penis, that bolt. I have an RPG.
You hit me with it! Again?
At me? Oh, I'm going to bleed out here. I shot an RPG at feet. Oh, good man yourself.
Come on.
I have no bolts, by the way. Absolutely none. 0.
I have some bullets, but they're not doing much.
I need to run try and find ammo here. I can't do anything.
I think there was ammo up the stairs where I'd left it.
Oh shit, okay. Oh, there's herbs. Like that.
She decides to pick something up off the ground.
Right, that helps. I got health, at the very least. Got ammo.
Right, one of... I think he's dead. Yes. I think that's the 2 big guys
One of
dead.
the big ones dead?
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, well done. Nicely job. Well done. Right, I got ammo, just need to reload.
One must hear about no messing. The Ark wants to shit. Just read that Division 2 are announcing PvE only Dark Zone. Okay.
I got ammo, but it didn't count. Can you help?
Thrust kick. Other sidey. Other sidey.
Oh, it's Magnum ammo. That's why. Shit. It's no good if I don't have a Magnum. Whoa.
I got
Right.
like 2 bullets left.
The fact that there's barely any ammo does not help.
No.
I'm shrouded here.
Why would you give? Why is it giving me machine gun ammo? I don't need machine gun ammo. Where are you?
I will take that.
Here, take it.
Thanks. You give it to me. Right, this is intense, chat. Sorry, I can't really keep up.
No, it's in a wee camp. It's not on the tents.
Shut up. Realize when I said it. Bang. Right. No, I didn't mean to do that.
No, we'll catch up with chat in just a wee second, folks. Apologies for Hooke being so rude.
It's not me, it's a game. What the fuck? Roman Reigns there? I stomp this guy.
Fuck, you still going? I get you.
Yes, I did it.
Right, so
Holy shit.
the Orc wants to shit. He's in Hooke's chat. Right, but we got that. 559 always deserves to win. That's for Mrs. Hooke. I heard the trick to this game is to hit them and not get hit. Ooh. It's an unusual way to look at it. But I respect it.
No more RPGs.
Remember, I'm in the office tomorrow, but purely
Shit
good
is
crack and
like
positive energy. Tomahawk, not a problem. I'm the same. I'm in the office tomorrow too as well, and it's a pile of shit.
Tomahawk, look after yourself. Tomahawk, did I tell you I'm off the rest of the week? Just so you know. So enjoy the office tomorrow. And all the best. Thanks for coming on. I'm off work, at home playing First Light. Oh, nice, Flemish. You booked it off, didn't you? Tell you what, Hooke looked like he's struggling in this heat. I'm not too bad. I'm actually not, it's not even sweat. It's just, you know what that is? Thank you, Naylor.
Perspiration.
Timing. No, it's not even sweat. It's sun cream. That's why it's shiny.
Right, okay.
That's what it is. For instance, the game got delayed to the week where you're off. Fantastic. Fantastic. Love when that happens. Right, we now have time to actually fucking loot.
Yeah. Man gets sunburned
That was
indoors.
insane, eh?
I thought I was bad. That's a ginger for you. It's a ginger for you.
Cracking out the baby oil. Factor 300. Class. No, I was actually outside.
Get a tan from the monitor. 100%. That's how it's done.
Right, I don't have a Magnum, so...
I think
right,
I do.
I have fucking nothing. I just
I do.
discarded bolt, sorry.
I do have a Magnum.
Alright. You never heard anything?
Did you discard bullets?
That would be an ecumenical matter.
Jesus. Jesus.
You're loving it so far, McKin. It's nice.
There's machine gun ammo over here. Can I, like, highlight it to you?
That's what I was just curious of. Right, I got some handgun ammo, which is nice. I can see on the map at the very least.
Yeah, there's machine gun ammo here.
Right, okay.
Looks like me. He needs to be careful of a full moon. I am a bald ginger. I got it worse.
And
over there.
I'll never forget the time. Oh shit! We went on. I think it was just one of our Monday night gamings, and that man came on looking legit like a squashy. He was burnt dead crisp. His head was pure pink, and his neck was sheet white.
Just the same as well with Waffle's wedding. That man didn't even wear a pink shirt. He just was sunburnt.
Oh, yeah. Here, do you have a Magnum, did you say?
I do, yeah.
Here, where are you?
I think I need to open this and you need to go across.
Oh, I climb up. And why would I have to go across?
Because I'm holding the thing.
Right.
A Magnum, yep. I'll almond
smart.
Magnum. Oh, the gun. Boys, the top of my head got burnt the weekend of... You not wearing your hat? Annihilator, you're supposed to be wearing your nice comfy hat. What are you doing?
35C in your car? Jesus. 35C is 95 frame units. I am chatting to chat. Would you cam your biscuits?
Wrong way. The bridge.
I know, man. Well, I don't know how to get on the bridge, though. What bridge are you talking about?
Go back down the ladder and around.
Right, okay. Would you let me chat to people?
No, no. You chat too much. There's a problem. This is why nothing gets done. We're saving the world here, Hooke. Yeah.
That doesn't work. Did you let go?
You give our RPG, you bastard.
We need to do all the looting again now. You jerk. Mine was a mistakes happened, right? For science. My brother.
Well, I'll pretend the same thing then. Ignore us, we smell anyway. Guys, I definitely smell it, eh?
Right, can I take the rifle out? I can put another first aid spray on. Right, okay. Ready. Yes. Sweet.
Go.
I find it hard to chat on stream. Do you mean now in our co-stream or when you're actually streaming, Ignitus?
Right, so I just... no, we don't have to... We're grand. Look, we're right here.
Happy Hiccup bird of the weekend. Afraid to look, but it might be a bit thinning up there. Ignorance is bliss, so I refuse to look. But that's the beauty of not being able to see the top of your head. You know? So, use the head for it, you'll be fine.
I know.
And I made a miracle today. I went to the dentist for the first time in nearly 20 years. Everything was fine. Of course means I've used all my luck. I'll get my bus tomorrow.
But your teeth will be great, though.
Ah, yeah, that's it, I know. At least when they're doing the post-mortem, oh, geez, lots of teeth in this fella. Man, that's amazing. The fact you went to... I hadn't went to the dentist in years because I got struck off because I moved. And went, and it wasn't too bad. I think I got a film. It was my first film, to be fair. And literally like 2 months later, wisdom tooth.
You two have the charisma for it? It's fake. It's fake. It's Irish nonsense.
It's just Irish confidence. Gift
I was the same a few years back, except I still have my baby teeth. You still have baby teeth in your mouth? Fuck off. You're like 50.
What?
Look at them, they're crooked and a bit yellow, but fuck me, nothing needs filled. I'm the same, I've never had a fallen. Except that one time Hooke got me drunk.
Yep. I had to get 12 teeth taken out. It was as a teen, as they weren't falling out. That's mad. No, I went to the dentist, everything was good. Everything was great. Literally about a month later, whatever.
There is shotgun shells here if you can take them. Me versus you, Leyoric. I'm proud of you for your drivatar running RX-7 FD. Nice choice of car. They don't even know what that is.
Man,
Sounds like a type of battery to me.
Right, let's
I do.
see.
The adult teeth never grew in. They're in my head, but never grew in and pushed the big ones out. No fucking way. That's mental. Wait, you still have tiny. This now, when he streams next, everybody needs a fall flemish so we can stare at his wee tiny teeth.
Give me a grenade.
I'll give you shotgun or rifle shells for a grenade.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But
I requested there. Don't know.
do it again.
I think I have to do it again. Rifle ammo. Give. Oh, I can just give it to you. Never mind. It's all good. Because I wanted the shotgun shells.
Ah, right. Okay, I get you. Teeth reveal, 100%. Like the subtle sound of the follow animation. Hello, hello, follow me. Okay.
Chat a second. The adult teeth never grew in there in my head, but that is mental. So literally, as I was saying, like a month later, then I was eating something. I wasn't even eating something hard, and I bit down, and literally, like my molar tooth, the back, halved up the middle. And I was like, "What the fuck?" Went to the dentist, and they were like, "Oh yeah, there's a wisdom tooth growing right up on the," which I didn't know about till that point. And now I have the same thing.
It's not even the Flemish can eat all the sweets he wants. Flemish will get an absolute fortune off a tooth fairy.
Sarah's skint. She's like, "Let's take this 15 and putting fucking fiber underneath his boat."
BK Ultimate, what's happening? Evening.
How did you get across there? Right on your side.
I jumped. There's shotgun shells up there.
Oh, right.
You missed the shotgun shells. They're behind you. What? Over there.
I can't see. Oh, shit. Okay. I did. Thank you.
Cheers, a tooth fairy with the ducks. Now we know. Now we know. Sarah comes to everybody's houses and gives them money.
BK Ultimate, welcome on.
Actually,
good to see you.
What's in that wee room? Because if that is taking us down, what's in here?
I don't know.
Ooh. Treasure.
Treasure. Marshall.
Right, so we have to go this way now. Apparently I need Chris here to ride.
Hi. Fair enough. So, I can talk Pringle on my own here, but Hooked put a restraining order on me.
What I find, it's very difficult at the very start to get to that point where you can learn to talk to yourself. It can be
100%.
very daunting. But I normally just talk about what I'm doing in the game or just chat absolute shit. Or slag off
what I was about to say, yeah. You'd have to just think out loud. And then if someone does come in, then like obviously chat to them. But the key thing to learn at the start is if you pop into someone's stream and say there's like one person watching, or you'll see like a common trait where people then latch on like mad and they'll hit you with like 5 questions. And then what often happens there is then the person and then doesn't reply. Or replies once and then fucks off. So like it's a balancing act at the start. If you have like 2 or more people in chat, it's grand. Like
take advice from us, the people with the millions of views. Well, if we get everybody together and we look at all the views that we've ever had, we probably would make 1 million. But that's why it's a community. You share it too much, I swear to God. I know it's funny as well. Whenever you're watching, follow Sierra as well. Sierra is Flamash's wife. But when they're streaming, there's points you'll see Sierra just turn around and give him a look. Don't you fucking dare! Don't you tell that story. And he looks at her and thinks, maybe I shouldn't tell the story. And then he tells it. It's fucking funny. I think routine can be hard as well. It can be. It can be. It's nailed down a schedule as well. It's making sure you stick these certain nights. Which, and to be honest, stuff comes up. Like I'm supposed to be streaming tomorrow night and Thursday. I might not be able to make Thursday because my sister wants to have dinner because she's a weirdo and wants to spend time with me, and fucking odd. But definitely over 70 views, at least 70. Best way to be. My third person says, she thinks I shouldn't tell her, therefore it must be a funny story. I didn't stream yesterday because I was hot. Ready? I don't accept that because you're hot every day. So what's your fucking excuse?
True. I don't blame you for that, really. There was a day last year during the heat wave that I did that, where I sat down in the office and I was like, nope, too warm, and I did not stream.
Okay, shit.
Surely she can have dinner and watch your stream. Well,
it never is. It just makes everyone wonder why I married you. We have asked that question.
Wait, did we not establish earlier on it was like Make a Wish or something?
Did you try not being hot? You're beautiful. We're like, look at Reddy getting all the love.
You're beautiful.
That is class.
He is though. That's the thing. Really
I'm
has
skipping
what every
Thursday and Friday.
bald man wants. Just grey hair instead.
So I can play Mina the Hollower. What is Mina the Hollower? Sounds like a dirty website.
I don't even know what that is now. I
Yeah,
mean, you
but
can
give it
play
a-
the PC, but usually the attire required isn't safe for work. Exactly. Like Annihilator the other night was sending us in the group chat that he was basically bollocks
nip.
naked, as people in Belfast would say, with his racing wheel, having a great time.
And then he had
and
then he had a racing wheel as well. There's shotgun shells
Yes,
there, man.
exactly.
I don't have room for them.
Oh, good man yourself. Thank you.
What's this? Rifle ammo and handgun ammo. Do you need handgun?
Handgun, yes.
I will snag the rifle.
Oh. What's in?
You know, in the
More
future they would
fellas.
need you to ask me how to play his game while we're both streaming. Fucking hell, I know. Jesus, he got stuck more times than I... Oh, no, I'm not going to say it. Not going to say it. Not going to say it.
Nope. Nope. Just going to use that because I need the space.
Oh, he just jumped.
Right.
Fair fucks. I fell.
Nice. Ready?
Gents,
Just
like
shooting, boys?
yourselves
Yeah.
making me want to stream. Fair play, Ignitus. Happy days. Go for it. And if you have any queries at all, give us a shout.
100%. You're on the Discord anyway, so by all means, dude.
And that's the whole thing as well. It's acknowledging that most people on here are streamers, so it's a community-based thing rather than my stream, your stream, he stream, I stream.
Yeah. 100%.
Do it.
Why do you have
Do it.
something behind me?
Do it. Do it. Wild Paws, right?
Yes, it is.
Do it.
Not you. Do it. Wild Paw, lovely, by the way. For the record. Oh, what the fuck?
We fought them before.
Nah, I forgot. Right, okay. We're not doing too bad here. Famous last words.
We're grand. We're grand. Although this level is very... this level does... They just took it from Resident Evil 4, didn't they? This is the bit where you have to get the fuel for the boat, doesn't it?
Well, I suppose it's fresher in your head, to be fair, because you've played it recently. There's a guy up there,
He is
absolutely
fucking
shotgun
throwing
balls,
things
dude.
at me.
Right, I'm gonna
He's
have
away.
bolts
He's away.
again.
He's away himself.
Back it anyway. Stupid ammo. Right, what's up here?
Oh my god. Thank you, Kane. Sit. Sit. Oh my god, sir. Sounds like you ordered us.
Not at all.
I'm already
I've only been
sitting.
able to lurk so far. Wild Paw, but yeah. I'm a wild man. See, if I'm like lurking someone, especially when I'm working, I won't chat really because my fear is like we'll start a conversation or like they'll ask me something and then I can't reply because and then I feel too bad. Shit, why did I jump across here for? You gonna drop ammo for me? No, of course not.
He's not now. Can we get across there? Do we jump?
Yeah, you can jump by.
Sir.
Cut the mask off his head, whatever that does.
It stops him being Jim Carrey.
Here, great film.
The sequel, not so much.
I've only been streaming a few months and I love it so much. It's you know what it does for me? Like, see, whenever I went work from home, streaming became like my social outlet, which is weird. Like, I always was explaining it to Mrs. Hooke where it was like, not only meeting up with people and socializing, but like without leaving your desk.
For
So
me,
for
it
many
was
people, the best type of socializing.
For me, it was that whole, you know, going around your buddy's house, sitting about playing games. It was that feeling.
100%.
That we kind of lost whenever online came on.
And I think we're worse off for that, you know. Like, you remember, like, me and McKenzie could definitely vouch for it. Or we're like, we would have met up and just played anything. But you hung out together and played anything. Or you would have one of us playing and the other one just sitting there chatting.
I think you have to pull the wheel over there. Or one of us has to.
Right, okay, I'll go there.
That'll take me over there, and it means I can open that door then.
Right, and it'll mean more people come flooding in, no doubt.
More than likely. Every third sentence from Hooke is, "Are you going to drop ammo for me? Get good, man." Rex!
We need it.
I'm getting a raid. Hold on, Hooke. Hold on.
Here, let's pause. Yep, no bother at all. Here, Grant.
Pause. Rex, welcome on. Thank you very much for choosing me for your raid. How was your stream, buddy? What is the crack? Anybody in my stream and Hooke stream, it's not following Rex. He is a wonderful streamer. Some describe him as the American Leyoric because we are both baldy men. We're proud to be bald and we have beards. You're playing a lot of Kingdom Hearts recently. Forza Horizon 6 tonight. He is also, if you any's have ever seen, do you remember when Hooke was doing the Final Fantasy 7 Echo S gameplay? Rex is the NPC voice actor director for Final Fantasy 8 and for the upcoming Chrono Trigger one as well. So definitely give him a follow because he does a lot of streams as well where he would do the actual modding and stuff and the voice acting stuff online as well, which is really cool. Also,
yeah.
Anybody rated the Amigos in my Hall of Fame?
Rookie. Ooh, your lead on trigger. Going really well. I actually can't wait. I was chatting to Leyoric like last month, saying I wanted to play Chrono Trigger. But I kind of want to wait for the Echo S. Or the Echo. Yeah. I say it'll happen. It's how I was able to stream Final Fantasy 7 though, so thank you.
No Leyoric voice on that screen.
Genuinely.
It'd be grand. It'd be grand. Why?
Really?
I'm going to.
He was basically saying really mean things about you, Harry.
I wasn't.
Which won't surprise you, you know? Now it's going on this screen. What the fuck? Leyoric, have you had set to toggle your mic or something?
It shouldn't toggle my mic. What the fuck?
Is it also toggling me?
No,
Like,
yours. No, unfortunately, everyone can hear you. Scene.
Sound like my wife.
Scene change cam. No, it's not set to toggle any microphones. No. Have you seen changes? I don't know what it's done. No idea. Not a clue. I'm sure it's Hooke's fault though. I have the Leyoric sound on, and I can unfortunately hear Hooke all the time, but not Leyoric. But you can hear me now. We're back in the game. Hooke, do you want to pull that thing now?
Yes. Turn.
Something about the cam coming on and off. I'm assuming it's Hooke's fault. He did it on purpose because he's a bastard.
No.
Never done pulling that, man. Oh, we've incoming. Fuck, what?
Oh, it's a crocodile.
What the fuck? No. If I had known, I would have made you do this.
Again, science. You're just lucky I can't get my RPG out here.
I am lucky because last time he killed me with.
See, I could stop moving this. But I won't. Love how the croc's waiting until now.
It's not really giving me a choice. I think she's automatically dodging it. I'm hoping.
Oh, really? I was about to ask how you were doing it. He's never done pulling.
No. There we go. I'm on the other side now anyway, man.
Please.
Kick the button. Alright, so that's brought down a drawbridge.
Nice.
And then I assume I just get out this side. There we go. This stick was all that was on the way. That was all that was stopping us.
Of course it was. We could have just kicked that. Right, are we separated here? I have to wait on you.
Yeah, I'm just going back now.
Right, sweet. That's alright.
Resident Evil.
Right, there we go.
Parkour. No, why the tall grass? Means we're not going to be able to see the fuckers.
This makes me think of Metal Gear.
Metal Gear. Ah, those footprints are these. Snake, dear brother. Liquid.
Oh, snakes
snake.
around the grass.
An actual snake.
Ironically.
Son of a bitch. You heard me too?
Read document. Type 3 Plagas field test. 1 week has passed its initial field test of the Type 3 Plagas. It was designed to display dramatically enhanced physical abilities previous versions. I'm not reading that. Careful now.
There's a first aid spray in here if you need it. I can't lift it, I have no more space.
No, I don't think I do, actually. Oh, hunchos. Nice. Thank you for the careful, Legolas. What is the crack, by the way? What's the plans for Jacob's birthday tomorrow? Although, don't know why I'm asking, because I won't be here, you know. The nephew shares his birthday is our wedding anniversary, so we miss it every year, unfortunately. Right, must be something in this wee hut.
How old's your nephew?
Jacob would be, he's 2017. Is he 9 this year then? Aye.
So you've done it on purpose then? You did that on purpose? You booked your
Right,
wedding on that per Wayne's birthday?
Yep, exactly.
Fucking son of a bitch.
Way getting out it, you know.
Damn, y'all trying to run me off the road. Now I have Hooke and waffles in my ass. Hey, that sounds like a good time. What a terrible
What am I
uncle
driving?
here.
I can't remember. I think I'm on the Nissan, aren't I? I think that's my Forza car.
Yeah, more like a Nissan.
Hello, isn't 9 tomorrow?
Looks like we've arrived at the oil field.
He's apparently 5, but he just want to get old and die. Jesus Christ.
Right there.
I don't want to get old and die like
What a terrible
Uncle Hooke.
I know. Uncle Hooke is right. Me too, kid. Me too. I know. We feel it. We feel it.
I
wonder if
don't.
we're going to be able to shoot that oil.
Don't know. We could take our oil if we can't.
Nope.
This seems very health and safety risky.
Just about that. Who the fuck's that?
Look,
Is that
GR
Irving?
Super Waffles BMW M3 comp.
Donde está?
Donde
I
está?
would probably stand back up again. Flemish just playing first light. See on Steve now. I think he did that. Yep. Sweet. Oh, you just ran down on there. No body. I was just picking them up here.
You threw a wobbler in the morning when he sees Banish for his 9th birthday. Lousy. Per Wayne.
Right there. That's a son, isn't it? Jacob's autistic. For anyone.
To be fair, I'm not one for birthdays either.
He's an
I
absolute.
fucking hate my birthday. You know what was really bad? And
actually?
I feel a bit bad for it. My fucking team at work are lovely, like brilliant, and they organised a lunch for my birthday for my 40th, and everyone went except me.
What? What did you do?
I just didn't go.
Oh, for fuck's sake, Leyoric. That was a warranted one. Right, I'm assuming we turn these valves to turn all this. Yeah.
No, I have a valve. I have a lever to pull over here. Nope, just pulls up that thing.
Ah, there we go. I turned some fire off. Right, and it lets more people out. Fantastic.
Seems like you only come here for the zip line. Whee!
Oh, I'm getting a raid. Eddie.
Amazing. Teddy, what's happening?
I cannot pause. I don't think.
He doesn't love you as much as I do, Teddy.
Teddy, welcome and thank you so much for the raid. What is the crack, good sir? Normal Tuesday night service is resumed.
Nice one.
There is indeed. There is indeed. Teddy's making a decision into the stream for raid transfer. Egan, welcome on. Good to see you, buddy.
If I could raid you both, I would. I know. I'm the favorite Teddy.
We've established this. Legolas is my sister, but she says Leyoric is a favorite. Funny enough, my wife says the same thing. There's a bit of a trend there.
There is,
Teddy, how was your stream? How'd you get on? You were playing the L14, weren't you? As far as I know. Oh.
This guy does not want to go down.
No, I'm helping you shoot him here as well. Oh, I'm running out of bolts. That's not good.
I'm also running the bolts. Oh no, I have plenty of angle bolts.
Right, you can do it. Let's see. Is there another valve I can turn off maybe? Actually, I think he's doing a guy left.
Is he? Right, cool beans.
Yeah. I don't think we can actually kill him with bolts.
No, we're getting there.
Taking all of our ammo? That doesn't seem plausible. For one guy?
One guy?
Yeah, now I'm out of bolts. Fantastic. Flim Flam, where does the RE rank in your overall rank? Not higher than 6 anyway. So
6 is his favourite.
Earlier,
6 is 100% his favourite.
Yeah. Absolutely loves it. 5 so far. It's been fun.
I've enjoyed it.
Equal parts jank, equal parts fun, but I have enjoyed it. Definitely. I have to say.
Shit! Don't reload! She sat reloading on his face.
Yeah, I don't think you can kill him yet. I think he should have ran away bravely.
Teddy, go and say something to my chat. I've added a new walk-on for you. Go and do it for a bit of crack.
I'll shut up.
You won't hear it anyway.
I bet I don't want to talk over it.
Blanche, what's happening?
Good evening, handsome. Teddy, great incisions.
This is a good one. Not amazing above 6. Not amazing, but above 6, Village, 0, and Code Veronica. Right, okay.
Ooh. Right, okay. Flemish, what is your favourite one, actually?
It's apart from 6. Apart from 6. That's the difficult one.
Yeah. But, Raiders, welcome in. I can actually say welcome now. Hello, I'm Hooke. If you're new here, Irish fella.
Resident Evil F.
Tonight I'm streaming with this handsome man.
Toss up between 1 and 2.
I talk too much.
I'm playing Kazan because I was in the mood for Souls like I remembered you saying it was Game of the Year 2025. Amazing. Amazing. I love Kazan. Not just for Ben Star reasons. Like I 100% of that game. I was that addicted to it. I loved it.
You did actually. Fun enough, speaking of 100% in Souls games, I looked last night.
Yes.
And I backed up my Bloodborne save before the end of the game. But I did it too late. So there was a way of getting the 3 endings. Obviously, I got 1. So I started a new game plus last night, and I'm only missing 7 trophies out of 2.
Maybe we have to avoid this guy. Village is now on PS Plus. Ooh, nice one.
Is it? Right, okay. Not just for Ben Star.
Not just for Ben Star, but it's a strong indicator as to why.
So what's your plan, Leyoric? How are you going to get closer to Ben Star? There's no doubt you've thought about this. I'm sure you have notes.
Just go to a con when he's there, and I'll just show him the big Ben Star tattoo I have on my chest of him holding a copy of Final Fantasy VIII.
He's a huge stars, like, exactly.
Anthony Howe's also on it. Margaret from Elden Ring. Ooh, very good. Of course, it's away.
Oh, right, okay.
Right, will we batter on?
Yes, hold on. Let me organize some shit here. I wonder if there's anything I can buy.
I'd play it before 6, Code Veronica and 0, though. See, Flemish means the opposite of what he says, so what he means is 6 is his favourite. Then he'd play 0 and then Veronica.
Really, I was going to say, really did Code Veronica recently, this year, I want to say. It was recently enough, anyway. And I remember you having strong opinions about it.
Fucking ass in a bad way. Fucking ass in a good way.
Dragonov.
Teddy,
I'm good to go.
Teddy, go and say something in my chat. Go and say something in my chat. I just want them to hear it. I made it especially for him, and he'll love it. Yes, we all know that Flemish loves 6. That's true. That's true.
It does.
It's dated and on
the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV with an expanded free trial, which you can play through the entirety of A Realm Reborn and the award-winning Heaven's Ward, Stormblood and Shadowbringers expansions up to level 80 for free with no restrictions on playtime.
There we go.
It's not good enough.
I literally just
Literally
IRL pogged.
IRL pogged.
So what I did is I got the TTS to read out the. Have you heard of the critically acclaimed MMO Final Fantasy 14? You can play it, and then just the whole spiel.
Class.
It just needed to be said.
Class.
Depends who's ass, 100%.
Yeah, folks. Leoric's obviously done the shit out here, and thank you for the raid. Follow Teddy if you don't know him.
Teddy's a legend. He's also proud to be bald and has a beard. Which means he's awesome.
Comes with a cup of tea.
Proud to be bald! Thank you, Teddy, for the biddies. Right.
What do you say? Thank you very much.
¿Dónde estás?
Let's keep the door open. Thank you. Yeah, alright. Again, you went ahead and just gung-ho down there. You should have stood up here and shot people.
Whoa! Was that you?
Boom. That was.
Machine gun ammo. Right, I am gonna make my way up around then and do the same thing I did before.
Around the outside. No worries.
I think you're right. Maybe run away from your man. He might be just invincible.
Yeah, I think he's invincible. Right, I'm gonna take this high ground like I did last time.
How did I get over there?
And I shall turn off this valve like I did last time. I don't think you can say, where are you? As you shoot someone. That's true. They're going to be here. So you can shoot them.
Did that happen to me in Spain? I was learning about Spanish so I could go into the shops and chat. And I was going to say, "Como estas?" which is, how are you? But instead I said, "Donde estas?" So I walked into the shop, up to the shopkeeper and said, "Where are you?" I should have just pretended to be blind at that point.
Shit. Oh, somebody behind me. Of course there is.
¿Dónde estás?
I can help. Please don't be gold. Ah, bollocks. Why couldn't it be ammo? Give me gold for. Ow. Jerk.
Right. Your man is going to show up.
Chainsaw Man again.
Chainsaw Man.
Are you trapped on him?
Yeah. No, I could get back out the door, I think. I just decided... I thought I had to fight him.
Right, okay. Second or fell behind me. Get the fuck off me. Ah,
You got me again.
Yep.
I'm going to do that before I open the door.
Yeah.
I knew it as soon as I did it. Just go straight back.
I know what the Spanish version of I Miss You by Black 182. ¿Dónde está? Can't pronounce the rest. Where are you? Because I'm so sorry. Yes, of course. If people don't know that, like, if anyone in normal conversation day to day say, it's just like, it's been a while. It's just common sense, you know? Exactly.
Do you know how to greet Spanish-speaking Souls players?
What?
Como estas?
Siento mucho. What does that mean? Oh.
Parkour!
I'm so sorry. You didn't again, you just ran face first on the enemies. You could have stood up here and shoot it.
No, they don't spawn until I jump down.
Well, that's not true, because the guy at the top I was able to shoot.
Aye, but the ones down here don't.
I know that, but we could have took out anyone else that we could see.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Parkour! Right, I am... Oh, there's a guy right there. Body bolts. Bolts overrated, eh?
They are. Sammy, what's happening? Welcome on. I love that nickname, Mr. Worldwide. Here, been a while, isn't it the Redeems? Or no, I haven't added it back in again. Although Hooke did mention it the last time.
Oh, I was annoyed about that. That was always my calling card at the start of the stream. Even though I never miss a stream.
Why would Daddy and Daddy stop
had the
fighting?
audacity to remove it.
How dare I?
Ah, couldn't believe it. Devastated. Right, not going that way.
Oh, I know this game. Isn't this? Yeah. It is. Me and
Doesn't have a co-op? It sure is.
El Hookador are playing this. I'm a lady and I'm pretty. You say it. You say it all the time. It was Chris Akira started it all that. Anytime someone came on, he would go, "Oh, it's been a while," and then we just go, "Everybody's well, been a while."
This became a thing. Chris was like, "I fucking hate my life."
I think Chris as well was the first to kind of really be for fuck's sake Leyoric.
Aye, that's where it started too. Yep.
He's a trendsetter.
Can't confirm.
Mr. Worldwide is very pretty. I know. Look at my butt.
Yep,
right,
can you run?
I'm going to get around this guy then and run and meet you.
I think that's a good idea. I'm going to turn off this hour valve, which does let a few boys out, but that's fine. Because I think we just need to run away from Chainsaw Guy.
Yeah, maybe.
Nearly dead.
Chainsaw Man. I'm about to and eat the scone. But is it jam first or what's the story?
Oh shit. Chainsaw Man.
He's quick. I'll give him that.
It would be easy to carry a chainsaw. I've already him. Where the fuck is he now? Right.
There's another valve I have to get.
Somewhere?
No, there's another valve over here that I have to get.
He's playing like he's chasing you around in circles up there. Oh, you're locked in a...
But I'm away. I'm gone. Can't catch me.
Plastic's coming after me now. Fuck's sake.
Oh, another one spawned.
Fuck. Of course it is. Of course it is. Right, I'm going to just use the high ground to my advantage here.
I think then we have to make a run for over there.
I don't know where over there is, but okay.
I see where the fire is. The fire's gone now. We can run past.
In the middle?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Oh, I'm trapped up here. Fuck.
Bit of butter.
Okay.
Very bit of butter. But the butter she bought was subpar.
Right, I'm assuming we can get through a door or something, get away from these. But...
Yep.
Oh, shit.
So there's more guys up here. Fuck. Let us through.
There's the door. Stop breaking boxes, open the door.
Right, open. There we go.
Jesus. A terrible time to loot.
No time is a terrible time to loot. Right. This looks like a boss fight.
Heck. I could do a wee minute to calm down here and actually chat to chat. It is.
Eric, calm
this
down.
Is intense.
Calm down.
Why didn't we play Stardew Valley or something? No,
Appreciate the passless run y'all are doing. We just couldn't chain the attacks together. That's the problem.
Oh, I keep forgetting about that actually.
Oh, who's this?
Oh, Irvin, isn't it?
Josh?
What?
No, never mind. I have no idea who's who.
You're alive.
Yeah, but...
Are you okay?
It's the lover man. Trevor.
I did that stuff like funny.
Where's the rest of the team?
Dead.
If you're not following Sammy, an absolutely incredibly chill streamer.
I mean, we have no match for them.
Definitely give a follow. Plays a lot of RPGs. Last playing Final Fantasy V.
Had a picture inside. The picture was of Chris's friend.
Chris doesn't have friends. He just has protein.
Until I catch Irving and find out what the hell's going on here.
Oh, sorry, I tabbed out the game there, chat. Didn't even realize.
It's done. Actually finished with the first nice one. I love that about streaming. Oh, fuck. Who's this guy?
He's got red eyes too. That's different.
They all have pink eye. Just stop about 2/3 of the game and then get bored. That's a good thing about streaming it. It kind of forces you to finish games.
It does. No, there is some exceptions sometimes where you're like, I'm really not feeling this. But they're few and
We Are Here, a great co-op puzzle game. Oh, we'd end up killing each other if it's anything like Portal. Force platinum runs. Oh no.
Well, with Portal, like, it was just embarrassing how much I carried you through that game.
Lyric is he gets around.
Kai, what is happening? Kai's walk on is
Hey,
me getting grief about how much I get around. Proud to be bald and I get around. Kai, what's the story?
You do.
That's actually what you wrote as well. I hadn't even read that yet. Kai, how did the rest of your stream go earlier on? Playing Yakuza at the moment and an absolutely wonderful streamer. Met her through Mike Does Audio. And if you work from home, especially in the UK,
yep,
great daytime stream.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
Hooke and Leyoric, yeah, we're murdering folks.
Yes, we are.
And I'm a pretty lady. Don't let Hooke tell you otherwise.
Oh, stop breaking on this, fellas. Come on. I'm assuming this is just a hold-off section. Well, your man was the
I think so.
90s hacking animation there in that panel.
John Hackman was a cop. Oh, it's one of them. It's one of them.
What's that mean?
It a big spurty thing coming out of his fist.
Alright, okay.
Who's playing who? I'm the girl.
Yes.
It's because I have the most... I mean Hooke, I have the more feminine features. Hooke's too manual, you see, he couldn't... You wouldn't think he was a female character if he played one. Thank you, Kai, for checking on.
There we go.
You look a pretty lady in the 2026 Britannia. You'll find Leyoric. 100%. How did I get in here? Where am I going? I'm getting eaten here. I'm getting eaten. I'm too pretty.
So am I, 'cause you're...
I see the resemblance.
There we go. Finally. How do I get on? How do elevators work? You go in the door. Egypt.
Mike sometimes does audio. Mike does sometimes do audio. On occasion.
He needs to be bald. I agree, Kay. Sinead O'Connor. That's what she needs.
It's been 7 hours and 15 days. So the way that check-in works is everybody goes up a level every time they check in on stream. And then at the end of the stream, you fight a boss. And if you beat the boss, you get an extra level.
And then how my check-in works is you redeem check-in and that's it. So, you know. There's nothing fancy to it.
Redeem check-in and Hooke has to check that works.
Yes. Although, it does give you an extra entry in the giveaways whenever I do them.
Yeah, that's true. That. Give it away, give it away, give it away now. That's how you tell how hot, that's how you tell how heavy a pepper is, you know. You give it away, give it away, give it away now.
Sorry, chap. There's not much I can do with it. Oddly, Hooks is the one that breaks more often. Oh, my check-in? My check-in's never broke. Oh, you mean my streamer bot though? Yeah, and then if so, then that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Get out of here with your tentacle head. There we go. Using all my bolts. God damn it.
It's not broken. It's just not working right now. It's having a rest. It's having a wee sleep.
Oh, for God's sake. An hour phase?
Are we trapped in here? Awesome. Oh, no. Chainsaw guy.
I knew there was going to be a chainsaw guy.
How are we going to defend against this? Yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
What if they kill him? We're basically saying screw him.
Well, I don't know. He's there now, look.
Right, he's coming.
We shoot him down.
I think he can only like flash grenade them and stuff, you know. Oh, that's a dead end. That's not good. Oh shit. We're trapped. That's not good.
Nope.
Oh, he got it. Right, okay.
Are we going to die trying to get past here? No, no, we got it. We got it. It's on holiday again for the 373rd time this year. Woohoo! Even if I don't want a Halo fact, can I check you out anyway? Yes. Yes.
I'm okay.
Right,
how can we tell how red or how hot it is? if you type a temperature into my chat, like 37C, it'll convert it into Fahrenheit.
Sammy and Teddy, thank you for the check-ins. It does, it actually, I stand corrected. It does do something. It beeps when you check.
Beep.
Fancy.
Beep.
Be careful.
You get chicken and Hooke stream. This is true. Winner chicken dinner.
Let's hurry.
Okay.
Fun fact, that's the beep you get when after you're dying in Halo. Exactly. So when it goes doot, 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 boop. And I know you're thinking, did he record his voice to do that beep? It did. Sounds exactly the same.
You need handgun ammo? There's someone here.
Yes, do. Indeed. I do indeed. Yeah, we're doing alright progress-wise in this game though, aren't we?
No idea. That's a deer with no eyes. No idea.
Oh, we're back downstairs, right? Okay. Where did all the bad guys go?
Where did all the bad guys go?
I can't get out that window. Okay.
Stretchy.
Okay. I think that's an ended chapter, I bet you.
Oh, nope. No, not yet.
There we go. Chrissy, thank you for checking as well. Oh. Shotgun shells. Yes, please.
What am I like ammo-wise?
It would automatically combine ammo. It would be great for inventory management.
It does automatically combine ammo?
No, it does not. The ammo will just sit in your inventory until you go combine.
So that's the way we have to go. Is this where we need to... Which way do we have to go then?
Hold on a minute.
There's two... Well, there's a big boat. I'm assuming that's the end of it. So we check this way first.
Aye, sure. Maybe we're going to find like a...
Oh, getting a raid. Getting a raid. Mike! Welcome on. Thank you very much for the raid. We were just talking about you. Thank you. What was the crack? How did you get on with the rest of Final Fantasy VIII? Did we... Oh, no, it was Dark Souls 2 you were playing. Anybody in my chat's not following Mike Does Audio. He is an absolute legend. Lovely fella. Has the chillest of streams. That's so loud, and it gets louder every time. I love it. I love it.
I was playing Dark Souls 2 tonight.
They said you sometimes do audio. This is true. This is true. It's all of us. Welcome on. Scode, what is happening? What is the story? Thank you very much for choosing me for your raid. We're playing a little co-op Resident Evil 5 at the moment. But anybody that raids into me, they go in my Hall of Fame. Give me a little second. Whoop.
Hopefully his mic's going to work in this overseen. Didn't last time.
I'm actually looking now just to make sure. For some reason, it's switching off when I come onto the scene. I'm going to have to go on and check it. But I manually managed to sort it. So, haha. How goes Resident Evil 5, pals? It's going well, Mike. It's actually going okay. We're making decent progress. We're fighting less and less as we go. But I think it's because I'm really pretty in the game. Hooke licks my bum. And that's why we're getting on, because he thinks he's getting some out of it. And you know what? He might. Uncle Willie, what is happening? An organization is here. I am so chuffed for you, raid men. Thank you very much, folks. Any who don't know my mate Hooke as well, it's me, IRL buddy. Don't tell him I said that. My mic's off, he can't hear me. And
I can.
He's a fellow Northern Irish streamer as well. And we are going to go back into the game now, and hopefully my mic doesn't switch off again.
Yes. But welcome in, folks.
No, it stays on for that. For some reason, my Hall of Fame, it switches off. I don't know what I've done.
You must have something set up in streamer bot to mute it a bit, you.
More than likely. If only there was some sort of tech channel that we could go to sort of stuff out.
Aye.
But we're not the greatest example, so I wouldn't advise anybody to go look at it. Is this door open?
No. It's always do as I say, not as I do type of situation.
I need to stand up, and I haven't for 5 hours. Mike, no worries. Didn't run died, OBS died, and then we played Dark Souls 2. Fair play. If anybody needs to raid and run, if you need to go get a drink, something to eat, or even just walk for 5, definitely do so.
If you're still there though, Mike, out of curiosity, where are you in Dark Souls 2?
I think your VODs are great. Thank you very much. I'm really proud of the most recent one with the Sonic the Hedgehog stuff on it.
That was great.
I enjoyed making that one. And it turned out Ian was making the exact same thing as a transition.
No way.
Yeah, because I made it under transition and sent it to Ian, and he was all, I've already been working on one myself, and it was just pretty much identical to mine.
Class. Well, ain't that good timing?
Great minds.
Yeah, we
great
have a new
minds.
video coming out Thursday, as well. I was working on one this week. Just need to finish the edit. And
This
the
is
thumbnail,
man. This is
that'll
gonna be a
be
boss
done.
fight. This is a boss fight
100%.
written all over it.
So I have an RPG, machine gun bolts, shotgun bolts. Not too
I
bad. I'm
have very little ammo. I wasted a lot of it there in that last room.
Yeah, that last room was intense actually.
No, it was inside a warehouse. It wasn't in a tent.
Oh, here we go.
I can feel your anger. I can feel your hate.
Oh, there's the mysterious plague mask person.
Batman. It's Ant. From Ant and Deck. Wonky donkey. Was it just going to be waves of them now?
Shit. No, there was boats around the other side, so I bet you we had to make our way. Oh,
You're exactly right.
oh, no, right, okay. I thought that was us. Right, okay. Oh shit, it's timed? Right.
Apparently so.
Drop. Jump down. To the
Oh,
right.
fuck. It's big fuckers.
Oh shit, what the hell was that explosion? Use.
You ready?
Yep, I had a heal there. There
Oh,
was a giant explosion.
Right. There was a lock on the door. It's gone, run.
Go.
They're all hiding in the... Oh, there's
there's
explosives.
trap mines, that's
They're
what it is.
all hiding in them rooms that we were looking on earlier.
Alright. Oh shit, there's another trap mine. I
They're
think I
inside it.
shoved a tablet or something in your mouth there.
That seems like it.
Watch.
Oh, he's not shooting us.
Fluffy more, come on.
Come on, man. There we go. We made it.
Yes.
Pro team speedrun that
Nice.
shit. Speedrun that shit.
Holy.
Cool guys. Look at explosions.
They need to jump under the water here.
Oh, Kai, if you're still there, you need to watch the other guys. There's a fella on Yakuza earlier in Kai's streaming, and he just landed flat in his face beside bushes. And someone in the chat said, aim for the bushes. And she's all, why? That's all you haven't seen the other guys. The other guys are so good.
It's nuts.
You think what I'm thinking? Aim for the bushes. There goes my hero. Look at that.
Nice. There we go. Another chapter done. 3-2. Nice. I like it. You can view the Shiva Almer in the library.
Is that Will Ferrell has a beautiful wife and feature? It is. That's it. That's it. You guys are flying. Are we? I don't know how much how many chapters are on this game?
I think there's 6.
6. What was that one?
3-2.
3-2. So
I think
there's still
3 and 4 have multiple parts to them. I think.
Right. Okay.
I'm not entirely confident on that, but I think.
No. I'm taking your word for it. If you're wrong, then I'm judging you harshly.
That's alright. Right. Still don't like that I can't buy ammo, but it is what it is. I'm going to buy a melee. Provides protection against melee attacks, can be worn with the bulletproof vest on. Never mind. Don't really get hit with melee attacks.
Malay.
Yeah, I don't really have much to spend my money on at the minute, which is...
Have you been upgrading your weapons?
Oh, I forgot about that.
For fuck's sake. I have my handgun nearly fully upgraded.
Forgot about that.
No wonder you have no room for ammo.
I know. Keep running out. Pumping it onto my shotgun here for a second, and then handgun. I was upgrading my handgun previously.
Check my
So do I have enough?
Well, I'm waiting on him. Waiting on him.
I do.
There goes my hero.
You have purchased all available upgrades. Nice. My handgun is fully upgraded, I think. Nearly, actually. Nearly. Okay. And my shotgun.
I hear Horizon 6 is a beautiful game. No. We don't play Horizon 6. We don't play it.
Ian.
Oh, there's Ian going on
there.
there. Amazing. No, keep going.
Ian, what is the crack? Welcome on. Leyoric is covering your face. Leyoric is covering your shoulder.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Of course, yes. Let me move him over here. Folks, welcome on. What is the crack?
I'm here twice.
Ian, how is the stream?
Tabs combined.
He's connected to the... Oh, look at that. I see Kay popping up there as well. Folks, welcome on. Turbo, good to see you as well.
Here they are now. All the lads.
Folks, welcome on. What is the crack? Hopefully you had a good stream. Thank you very much.
What's wrong? BK Ultimate.
Latency's reading me as well.
Latency, what's happening? BK Ultimate, you should know what's wrong with Forza Horizon 6. It doesn't have proper bald representation.
Folks, thank you kindly.
The creative character just has no hair.
These are awfully kind. Thank you very much for the raid. How was your streams? Latency and Ian. Thank you kindly. Me and Leyoric, as you can see, are doing a bit of co-optimus tonight. Going all right. Actually, we're flying through this game, I'd say, at the moment.
Yeah, we're making good progress.
Welcome on.
We haven't killed each other yet.
Well, I killed you being an RPG.
And I killed you by dropping you off that bridge. I've raided the most recently, so it's Hooke's time. Latency, not a problem. How was your stream, buddy?
Dude,
Ian, how was yours? Ian, I was lurking you, so I've probably inadvertently raided Hooke. No way. I am. Look at his fucking face. Jesus Christ.
Multiple times. But anyone that's coming on is new as well.
That's Hooks, and you won't.
Another Irish streamer.
Minecraft said the thing.
What did they say? I put 2 days into Horizon 6. Oh, that's a Hooks in me, and I won't let go. Okay, thank you very much. I'll check. Much appreciated. But folks,
Fallout New Vegas. How's the stream going, lads? Trek as well. Trex, what's happening?
Work away.
Support the boldness. I know. Trex, you've got it. You've got it. You know what you're talking about.
Oh shit, migrate. Flange is in a different time zone. He's popping on late with all the tabs merging.
Where are the turtles? Where is Phil? We're in Flanges the other day talking about food.
Even tell me. Man, I was still welcoming Raiders and you changed back scene? Yeah, no. I don't even know. You're doing that by yourself?
But the game just started up. I didn't even press it. It just automatically went.
You can't pause. That is true. You can't pause. Yeah. Fair enough. But folks, if you need a raid and run, of course, by all means.
I have very little ammo, actually.
I really do appreciate it. It's not going great for loud ammo, that's for sure. Right, I think we need to get out, do we? Yep. When you get off the stream, my friend, I sent you a cheeky DM asking you a tattoo question. Ooh, that's aimed at you, Derek.
Very good. No worries. I love a good tattoo question. Unless it's where's the tattoo of Hooke's face, in which case he knows the answer, but the rest he don't.
I can't tell you.
Hope waits for no man. It does not, eh?
That bug above your head is invincible. I've put like a stupid amount of shotgun shells in it.
What? What are you talking about?
There's a bug floating above your head.
Man, I'm just running around this map on my own. You're just standing on the boat.
Small my screen. No, that's you, my screen.
Have we glitched?
I don't know.
I've now frozen. I've now frozen.
So have I.
But not in the let it go kind of way.
Oh, we're back. Oh no, I'm frozen.
Well, I'm up at 6 a.m. Hey, Ian, no worries. Thank you very much. I am no man.
Ian, thank you, Kenley. Thank you, Kenley, dude, for the raid. I really do appreciate it. And absolutely here, no problem. Right. It's when I try and pick up a herb or something, the game freezes.
Same with me. I can't do anything.
Right. So we can't do anything.
We might have
that's
to
why I
exit and
can't
go back
kill
on.
an enemy then. Let's see.
We have to quit and go back on.
Right, let's see. I'm still running about here and I can still shoot people. Let's see how this goes. Maybe we can save this.
There's no people spawned on mine. You're just standing about.
See, I can't. It's let me pick up ammo.
It won't let me pick up anything, and I've come around to the switch to the other side and won't let me pull it. Ian broke the gate. It was Ian's fault. He broke the internet.
I pulled the lever. Let's see, we're back. I don't think so. Ian broke the game with the raid. It was my excitement. That's what happened. I just got so excited.
That's
going to head on
Go
here
to bed
myself.
myself.
I can't help but answer. Here. No worries.
No worries,
Thank you very much for the raid as well. Sorry,
Have a
like
good night,
Resi
bro.
5 hasn't really lent well for us to be able to channel to people, especially me, because it is so intense. But I really do appreciate it.
We haven't been in a single tent. Will you stop saying that?
What?
We haven't been in a single tent. Stop saying it's intense. It's false advertising at this point.
Kick your ass. Let's see. Restart game from last checkpoint. Did that help?
Yeah.
Do you think?
Aye, we might have to.
Unfortunately. Hopefully it's not too far back. I don't think I need to organize it. Radio.
I'm still in the game. Are you on the menu?
I read it up. Oh yeah, no, I have restart.
I'm still in the game. I'm going to have to quit.
Lurk has left the game. How dare you? Right, I'll send you an order and wait and see.
Yeah. What time you looking to go to tonight?
I was going to say it could be our ending point if you wanted. We could just leave it at that.
Maybe, because I'm in the office tomorrow.
Aye,
so
that's
it might be a good wee
that.
ending point. Yeah.
That's grand. That was good. I had a lot of fun.
So
thank you very much. That was great, huh? Really was. And thank you all for the raids. Of course, and to me and Anne and the always kind.
Absolute legends. I had who'd I have on that? I had Harax and I had Mike. You absolute legends. Thank you very much for the raids. Thank you, everybody came on the chat as well.
Ian and Terry. Thank you. I know. Thank you very much. Because one thing I'm sure Leyoric will agree. Whenever you're a viewer that are cool, I find it very hard to chat.
Yeah.
When there's like two streamers chatting at the same time, I find that very jarring and hard. So I do appreciate the people that are chatting and hanging out too. Like, and of course, Lurkin's fine.
And for Hooke to find it hard to chat, that must mean it must be really difficult.
Exactly. That means like I'm like, shit, there's a lot going on here. Because no, I could talk to myself. I often do actually.
Are we going to raid the same person or
in the pot raids? Aye, let's raid the same person. We did that last time. GG's, great stream, good night, Godspeed, you sexy devils.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thanks. You're way good. Right, I wonder if hold on, before we raid out or anything, let me see if I can, and it keeps where we're at. I think I just need to X out of the game, you know. Aye, okay. Right, have you a raid target in mind?
You know what? I called on this stream the other day, and he's really fucking sound. Dogtopus.
Oh, I love Dogtopus.
Really chill.
His streams recently.
He's playing Outer Wilds. I think he'll be a brilliant raid target for both of us.
What a one. Yes. Oh, Outer Wilds is a great game too. Right, hold on, they get
right.
Here.
I am gonna. Right, anybody who wants to check on now, please do so because I'm about to hit the raid out message, which is going to make the boss appear. So I've been wrapping presents. You've been wrapping my presents like us. You're wild good. You're wild good. Right. Good.
Let me know when you have raid there.
4. No, I'm not raiding out yet. This is just me about to bring up the last boss. 3.
Cool. No
2.
worries.
Is chat going to beat it?
Oh, don't worry about it. Like, lost your grand.
Bahamut has now appeared.
Oh. I think tonight's the night, you know.
Oh, it doesn't. It doesn't. Yet again.
Thanks.
Thank you for the stream. No worries.
Thank you so much.
So, raid messages have popped in my chat. It is the top one for followers, bottom one for subscribers. We're going to raid Dogtopus. Not yet, no.
Yeah.
Starting now.
Oh.
If you can call on the Dogtopus, give him a wee follow, say hello, it'd be much appreciated. I'll be back tomorrow night to play. I'm going to try the Resident Evil 2 speedrun again. When are you back, Hooke? Sunday?
Oh, nice. I'm back Sunday. Yeah, I'm back Sunday. Off the rest of the week. If I didn't say that earlier, I'm off work the rest of the week. Me and the wife's away for our anniversary, you know. So
you haven't mentioned that you're off the rest of the week. You haven't said that once this entire stream. But we're going to call on the Dogtopus now, and I will see you folks then.
Have
a lovely night.
Everybody else, all the best.
Bye.
See you later. Bye.